All right, everybody, welcome to the July 6, 2023 regular planning board meeting here in Sunset Beach in council chambers. And seeing we have a quorum, if you could join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a draft agenda before us at this meeting, and we'll start off by saying, does any member of the planning board have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? And if so, please state so at this time. Sybil?
I do not.
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 Okay, and seeing that no one does, we go to item number 2 on the agenda, which is to either amend or approve the draft agenda that's before us. I have an item, but does anybody have something specific they'd like to add or amend on the agenda?
No, I probably have the same thing you do, but
Well, go for it.
I think we should move item 6, new business, before item 5, old business, in order for the applicant there to be dispatched before we get into the UDO, just for timeliness and use of his time. So,
Okay.
even though he may need a rest today.
That's fine with me. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second.
Any more discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number 6, new business, will go into 5 slot for old business, and 5 for old business will go down to
6.
number 6. Seeing that we do have somebody in the audience. Public comments on agenda items only. Seeing that nobody is stepping forward, the item number 4 is consideration of the approval of our past planning board regular and special meeting minutes. We have 4 of them before us. I've already seen these minutes. Kate has sent them to me, and I've made some revisions to them. But does anybody have any suggested changes on May 4th?
On the May 4th one, page 2, that last paragraph, the first sentence, I don't think that's right. It says the applicant is also proposing changes to increasing the square footage of sign based on structures less than or greater than 25,000. I thought it was just that less than or should be removed. Wasn't it just for I don't know about structures, but places greater than 25,000?
You're right. However, at the way that item was authored at that point in time, until we ended up making a kind of a major re-edit to it, they were dealing with the entire sign, which ordinance, which would have for signs, which would have involved everybody. But I agree with you. That really was the applicant's intent.
Oh, so the way they wrote their proposal, Chad, is what is worded correctly, even though that's not the way it ended up.
Correct.
Even though they're not even matched their intent. Their intent was for 25,000, but the way they wrote their request, it was for everything.
Well, they were dealing with everything initially
Right.
on the first meeting.
Okay.
Anybody, Ron, any other on May 4th?
No.
Anybody else have anything?
I'm good.
I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes as is drafted for the May 4th, 2023 regular town council meeting. Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I stated that wrong. I apologize, but I was requesting a motion, and I just assumed I was making it. All right, the next set of minutes is for our May 18th special meeting. Where we did, it was a continuation for our UDO update process. Any revisions on that?
I just have a question. What I read on page 7, packet page 7, the bottle shop or wine bar, and
Mine only goes up to 6.
No, packet page 7.
Package.
Oh, packet. I'm sorry.
Minutes
I'm sorry.
page 2.
Got it. Okay. Sorry.
which says an establishment primarily devoted to the sale of alcoholic beverages with the exception of spirits and liquor.
We beat that to death. because we were trying to figure out the wording.
Isn't that an alcoholic beverage?
Yeah, but we were trying to limit it to beer and malts.
A beer and bottle shop versus a full-blown bar.
Okay. All right.
And nowadays there is a difference. I think Wes went into that. With a
Yeah, I
little
do
bit of
remember
detail.
that now.
So this is beer
When I
and
went
wine
over it, I
we're
just
talking
thought that
about, really.
sentence made no
Yeah.
sense, but I guess it does.
Does everybody agree?
That's agree how we discussed this. I mean, that's agree at the change we made. I'm still wondering if it's
Well, we can
correct enough.
we
when
can
get
deal
to
with
the
we can deal with that.
when we
the
get
next
to the
meeting.
section, but that's what we agreed to make the change, to add that back. We had messed that up in our first discussion.
Well, we'll deal with that as we do the UDO final draft. Any other?
I have a question on page 4, right at the top.
Packet
And
page
maybe-
4.
No, minutes page 4, packet page 9. That National Pollutant Discharge and Elimination System NPDES stormwater discharge permit. If you look at our draft, the heading was split between 2 pages, but I don't recall that we actually struck out the language. We were just, if you look at the draft, the first up to the NPDES was like on the bottom of one page, and the permit was on the top of the next page originally when we got that. But I didn't have in my note that we actually struck the language like it's showing here. So either my notes are wrong, that we were just going to fix the way it was. It was just split on the page. The page break broke up the heading.
Let me see.
Do you
Wes,
remember?
is this something that's important for us to?
I just don't, my notes, I don't know what everybody else notes, doesn't show us striking the language, just fixing the heading.
I just need to look at my notes.
I don't remember.
So that would be, I don't know if I can find it again though.
7-1. No, 7.
Would it be under the stormwater ordinance?
No, I think we decided to strike the whole thing, given that it's not a permit that the town issues.
So strike the whole section, including the
Yeah.
heading.
That's
That's what we
right.
decided on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So the heading should also be struck. The whole
Yep.
section disappears.
That whole definition.
Is that what we decided? Okay.
That's
That
what I have
makes
in my
sense.
notes. Yep.
Any other items on the 18th?
Well, yeah, I do on page 10. The sentence under special events, it has a colon and then it says may run in requirements with this ordinance are attended to. The 2 sentences aren't separated. Hmm. That may run in requirements with this ordinance are intended to or likely to attract substantial crowd. That's a lot of verbiage. I think that can be, that's,
She's just trying to take what she thought we said.
mhm.
Um,
I don't know how we written that section. We can look, see how how it's been rewritten.
does it matter what it says here? I know it matters what it's going to say under special events for the definition,
Yeah.
and
It's just like a whole lot of ideas were put into one sentence without,
oh, you're right. It doesn't read right.
that's,
See, that's not what it says in our definition. May run for longer than 1 day.
Is that a definition?
Yeah, it's a brand new definition.
Special.
And what we did when we reviewed it is Wes said he was going to revise
okay,
coming up in the next couple weeks,
that makes sense.
which he did do.
Yep.
In
Which
the
th- which
definition.
matters. I mean, the minutes are important, but ultimately, what matters is what the
It's the final
ordinance
draft.
doc says.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any other items? We still have the one thing that we'd like to have stricken, and that's the Nippities heading would be removed, as well as the sentence that describes it. So it'll just be another strike through. Anything else with May 18th?
I'll say, Katie, you're doing this a lot
Oh,
Yeah, me too.
to keep track.
I don't know how
Yeah.
you do it.
Yeah.
I don't either.
I go back later
Yeah.
and I go, what?
Yeah.
I have to go to the tape. Can I have a motion to accept the May 18th minutes as amended?
So moved.
I second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the third set of minutes, May 25th, another special meeting where another special meeting. I don't need to get into the topic. Any comments? That was our first meeting that had to do with conditional zoning, first public meeting. I had some changes that Katie has already initiated. I went back through the tape to verify it for the YouTube.
Fine for me.
All right, I'm not hearing any. Can we have a motion to accept the May 25th
I so moved.
meeting? Can we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
Yeah, you weren't here.
I was not present, so.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. May 26th meeting minutes. That's the last set of minutes we have to approve or review this time. It was the second meeting in the conditional zoning process, public meeting. Any suggested revisions to those minutes? I have none.
Right. No, it's good.
Okay. Can we have a motion to accept the draft minutes for May 26th?
I so moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And again, we'll abstain.
Gotcha.
I would like to ask one question. I'm concerned, God knows this was an incredible amount of work, given the amount of time these meetings took place. But I was hoping we'd have the minutes for the June 7th meeting, because we're not going to have an official record of probably the most important meeting of the planning board that can be part of the record for the town council on July 10th. I'm not sure that there's anything we can do about that now, but if there is,
Do you meet before them? Tim?
No.
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 No, that's Monday.
Oh,
Is
that's Monday.
Yeah.
They're ready, but they're not ready to be approved. I just got them back after I put this agenda out the same day.
she has to pass them through several other people before they come to.
Is that something that can happen during the time that we're meeting and we can put it on the agenda as the last item?
I mean, staff's working hard on those. I mean, they'll be available at the August meeting.
No, I think what he's saying, he would like to have that minutes available to the council at the time before they meet, right?
Yeah, I think that's.
I mean, I guess the question is it available to them?
I'd like to make a suggestion. If Katie hands them to me right now, I won't have a time to digest them and be able to talk intelligently about them during this meeting. However, that being said, if we can get them sent to us, even in the draft form, it at least gives us the basis for a starting point. And then if we find some things that are objectionable or suggested accuracies, we can contact Chad and Katie with those information.
And leave it just as a draft.
Yes.
At least it's available to the council as.
Mr.
I would
Chair,
interject.
minutes in the draft form are also public form.
Yeah.
So when I do that, that means public can see these minutes before they have been approved, before they could be completely accurate, because you know that was a 24-hour meeting that I took minutes on. Those minutes are about 20 pages long. I'm not sure that that's ready for public.
If I may, the conditions have been provided to everyone, correct?
No. Town council has them.
Yes. I'll make sure you have them. I
I
thought I
believe-
sent them to y'all. My
Okay.
apologies.
Let's make. Would that be
When you
helpful?
talk about conditions, you're talking about the
the final,
MDR.
the final discussed, draft conditions for each site? I was not aware. I thought that those had been sent
Yeah.
to you guys. Which is the crux of, I think, a lot of the discussion, and certainly the minutes
is.
will allude to those. But
is.
I think that would be helpful, and that is available.
Mhm.
Now, for the record, I've seen them, and the only reason I've seen them is I came to a board of environmental resource committee meeting, and I saw them in the hallway,
Okay.
standing up against the wall for Chad was away.
Okay.
In fairness to him,
Okay.
and I asked Katie for an electronic copy of them.
Okay.
But they are disappointing.
In what sense?
A lot of things I thought were going to be there, either I'm mistaken or they were missed.
So how would this work? If we like get a copy, can we comment back and say, my notes say
Well,
It-
hold
so-
on, just
subject
say,
something?
but
agreed to
I mean,
this.
but Mr. Larkin's not talking about the conditions. He's talking about the revised set of plans that were dropped off.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Well, but the conditions are a part of that because the summary sheet on each drawing was also revised. So it's, and I'm not trying to create a
Sure.
mountain out of a molehill here. I think it's very innocent. I don't think anything was attempted to try to skirt any of the conditions we agreed on. I just think that for a third party to look at what we've done,
Mhm.
I don't think it tells them full story.
Sure.
So it's
Well, I guess
So
without having seen this, we're talking about a written document or all the original drawings.
So there's
updated?
two components on it, and really we're getting into a discussion that's not part of this meeting.
Correct.
So, but I'll say that there's two things. One,
Mhm.
the draft conditions were provided to everybody and to the applicants.
you provided them.
That's correct.
Mhm.
And then two, a revised plan set, which is still very much in draft form. It has now been provided, and then as part of that, just the same as you guys have gone through this, there will be another stage of modifications to ensure that
Or clarifications, we'll call it. Okay.
clarification.
But the only thing the town council has, and I'll support Richard in this,
Okay.
is the new master development plan with summary sheets for each of the subject sites. That's all they have. I don't believe they even have your summary notes that you provided to the applicant and to the planning board.
We'll make sure that they get those.
Also, I'm happy to discuss any of the minutes with you. Those set of minutes in particular, all of the conditional zoning, they have went through more than our normal channels for review because they are so important. But as a side note, I don't know that everybody's aware, I also take minutes for every single board we have.
I know you do.
So it takes me a while to get these minutes done, and I apologize for being behind on these
No,
minutes.
no, no.
But
no.
you will
yeah,
have-
no, there's no apology.
Yeah, you will have
Yeah,
the
please.
You
chance for
probably
next
have up to 8 meetings a week that you have to sit there and listen to people
Not
ramble.
quite 8, but
Feels like 8.
basically every meeting Chad's in, I'm in.
Well, I guess the point
right,
is
let's-
to make sure the council's armed with all the information and it's correct. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah, and that they have time to review it. I mean, we've been going over this stuff for 2 months, and there's, level of insights in terms of the time it takes to, okay, I see this on paper. It's incumbent on me, much as Pete has done and I have done, to walk it. That takes time. We're now, what, 5 days away from a meeting where some of this stuff might actually get approved. That makes me a little nervous.
What's the likelihood of that?
That's unlikely. But yes, it's
could be.
possible.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Okay.
So whatever we can do to make sure.
All right, I don't know that we can resolve that right here. I think that's a staff.
But the point being, I guess, is
We will make sure that-
I will make-
Everybody.
I will make sure council and everybody has the right information that I've already, so I'll make
Okay.
sure.
And that includes the planning board.
But in order for me to find clarifications, Chad, it's probably taken me 12 hours of going through the latest master development plan package, dated the 14th of June, and say, hold it, that's really not what I thought. That kind of thing. But again, it's innocent. It's not, nobody's trying to get anything over on anybody else. It's,
Just clarification.
Yeah. And
And
just to be clear, that those documents, Chad, you're going to forward to all of the
Yeah,
planning board.
everybody will have them. Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, I'm just going to say that that was a comment
Yes,
that you were
thanks.
making because it's certainly not on the agenda. I believe we are now ready to move forward to the new business item for Eastwood Bluffs final plat, Phase 6. Chad, will you give us a introduction on that, please?
Yeah. So Riptide Builders, the applicant and owner, is requesting the final plat approval for Phase 6 of Eastwood Bluffs Townhomes. Final plat approval will grant permission to construct and operate Building 5 and 7 of a multifamily residential unit in the Sea Trail community. The subject property is located off of Eastwood Park Road. Subject property is about 11.4 acres in size and may be further identified as the Brunswick County parcel number listed in your staff report. Based on the staff review, the proposed site plan is in accordance with the provisions of the town UDO. All necessary information has been provided to the town as a prerequisite to the planning board approval. Staff's comments are attached. The applicant is here. So, Mr. Chairman, you have the floor.
I did not specifically have any questions. This is the fourth time or sixth
Six.
time that we've come through with various building sites on the same subdivision. I'd like one question of the applicant if I could, and I'm sure the rest of the board will probably have some questions as well. And it's the old item that we've talked about many times. And it has to do with the flooding on Eastwood Park Drive, I believe is the name of that road, that was coming. Alan, can we have the microphone on, please, for the podium? Thank you.
There we go.
And just as a note, after one of our prior meetings, I think some statements were made about that the flooding had been mitigated almost completely, and that you hadn't heard anything from any of the citizens. Some of these citizens locally there said that they thought they had contacted Riptide about it. But just generally tell us, is the problem getting better?
Absolutely. Every time there's a building completed, obviously one of our Eastwood Bluff buildings gets hooked up, stormwater drains wise, to the existing stormwater system, and the water can't leave via the parking lot, which does eventually run out towards Eastwood Bluff at the bottom of the hill. We are making our way. We just got building 4 hooked up. Unfortunately, as opposed to the last 2 years, this year has been moderately wet, to say the least.
Well, look at last night.
Yeah. So we are anxious to get these next buildings completed and the stormwater systems hooked up, and that water then no longer makes it out to the street. It goes directly into the stormwater system and then out to the adjacent stormwater pond to Eastwood Bluff. Like I've said in previous meetings, we did install a drain at the driveway, which at that point in time will collect any moderate rain that comes off of that driveway. Even with these buildings not being completed to the state stormwater requirements, the addition of the drain and other improvements to the site have drastically reduced the amount of water that's being seen there. And of course, they're only designed to a certain standard of rainfall. And I think this year, on several occasions, we have greatly exceeded the water capacity that a lot of these systems can handle. So as we keep progressing towards completion, the stormwater issue is going to keep getting better and better and better. And it's one of the things too, we've talked about, what kind of maintenance plan can be put on the storm drains on the street, because obviously, with the pine straw that falls out of all the pine trees in the area, they obviously tend to, on Eastwood Park Road, clog the drains. And the homeowners that used to actually, believe it or not, prop up those storm drains and with bricks during rain events because of some of the issues with debris from the pine trees and what have you. They're no longer doing that, and they're not having the level of flooding that they had prior to the Eastwood Bluff project progressing.
Chad, any comments from staff on this? It looks like it's pretty
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. This is the sixth one. I will say this: I'll put all the buildings on a map now. I think we have 3 left. There's only 3 buildings that are left out there. I know of 19 or 20 or 20 and 1 and 22. I don't remember the third one. I know it's a single digit. 6. So just to let you know, as far as Todd talking about hookups and stuff like that, we only have potentially 1 more phase of this, maybe 2, potentially could come in at the same application to be approved, and all of them will be finalized to the point where the only thing that will be left will be certificate of occupancies for those buildings.
What about the pool area? Have we already
So
dealt
the
with
pool
that?
area I reviewed yesterday as far as my plan review. I got that out of the way, so it is looking to be permitted further. I think part of that has already been permitted. I think the building aspect of it for the
Well, yeah, it
renovations
was
to that.
shown on the overall
has
site,
been-
preliminary site plan.
Yeah.
The clubhouse itself has been permitted for renovation.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And the pool itself, you all just signed off on that. We need to pay for that permit, and we are on our second round of review with Brunswick County for the pool structure.
Jerry?
The water is almost at capacity now on that because I didn't buy it the other day. The pump station, it pumps it from there to over to 13 Bird.
Yeah.
Because
That water goes, let's see, that water from that pond goes,
it comes from
it goes to the ponds that are between Rice Mill, and then it goes and just works its way out towards Oyster Bay.
it's almost full. Again, I don't know, but it looks full. So as long as there's a measure of making sure
There's
that
got to
we
be an
pump.
overflow on it.
Yeah, there's overflows, and I mean, I'll have to check with the golf course on, their downstream overflows and see what's going on there, but I can
No,
give
it's
Jesse
It's
a
just an observation. That's all.
Sure.
So it's just
You're not running the lawnmower into the
I don't know.
water.
Might be a golf cart stuck in the overflow after 4th of July
There
weekend.
could be.
It's possible.
Richard, anything on this?
How many units is this going to be when it's done? 88?
It was approved in 2006 for 88 units.
Ron?
No, I'm good.
Civil?
No.
Okay. And you're finished?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything more. So I guess our next thing is to entertain a motion for acceptance of the site plan for buildings 5 and 7.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Nope. Okay. All voting?
Aye.
Affirmative?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Ted.
right.
Thank you for a good
Thanks, Todd.
package.
Take it easy.
Do we need to do anything more on that, Chad? Chad, we don't need a vote on anything else other than just that,
That's it.
the plan
Yep. So
as,
now
as
we'll
we've
move
done.
to old business with the UDO update.
Okay, now we'll move directly into old business, Unified Development Ordinance update for the people watching on YouTube. This is our first meeting to review the final draft, which has been provided by Wes from the Council of Governments to us, which has been putting everything together in the various 2 stages that we've gone through to end up at this point in our overall Unified Development Ordinance revision process. We're on schedule in accordance with the schedule that staff and Council of Governments provided back in January of 2022. So that's great. We've had a total of 19 dedicated meetings to date since January of 2022 to get us to where we are today with this final draft. It's been exhausting, but it's a very important item for our town so that we can get our Unified Development Ordinances up and current to better fit the operations of our town and our citizens. We have a current milestone date coming up so that we hopefully would be finished with this, although we're not going to rush it, finished with the final draft review of the UDO so that we can hopefully sit down in September with Town Council jointly and move forward with their review and of the new Unified Development Ordinances. I guess we can talk about it, Chad, at the end of this meeting, but we will need to have agreement on when our next meeting is. I'd like to see 2 meetings a month to make sure we're through all of this, but it depends upon planning board and staff schedule, and Wes, obviously. All right, as we start off, one of the things I noticed, Wes, is that we jump right into Article 1 of the UDO, which basically was Article 1 of our prior UDO, which is general provisions. But we have not addressed anywhere in this final draft package any of our municipal code items. And we had spent some time on that. It was the very first thing we did as we started this process. And I bet there were a dozen things that we discussed. Some that maybe we don't have the legal right to do. Other ones I think are important. One of the things I'm a stickler on is our municipal code that deals with what can and cannot go on in our town park. And there's things like bicycles and skateboards and hoverboards and rollerblades and things that I would like to see not allowed. But as our Muni Code number 99, Section 99 states today, it really only excludes motorized vehicles, like a motorbike or a motorcycle or a golf cart. So I know we're probably not prepared to deal with that right now, but I'd like to see something on that for us to go through as a part of this final draft.
So what you're looking at then would be recommendations to the council for ordinance changes to complement the UDO or supplement.
It supplements the UDO, yes.
I'm thinking procedurally how it would just be a
that would be
recommendations.
That would be outside the purview of the scope of this project, though.
Yeah, but it was the first thing we addressed when we sat down to do it.
There was nothing in there we didn't have anything for Chapter 99.
Yeah, we did.
It's Chapter 98.
Chapter 98 we do. Yeah,
Well, I know we discussed it because I brought it up.
I'm looking at let me see. Maybe we. No, I don't have anything in here for 99. It's only 90. Yeah, it's only 97, 98.
Okay.
I wasn't under the I did not recommend, or not recommend is not the word, have a conversation with Wes about bringing 99 or the park rules into the UDO. It was, I mean, sure, the
I don't want to
reference
bring it
there,
into the UDO.
Yeah, it's in the minutes.
And the date was the 17th of February of 2022.
Let me see the minutes.
The minutes do talk about Section 99. Member Larkin questioned why Section 99 was not included in the UDO review. Mr. McLeod responded that Section 99 refers to town park regulation.
Right.
It did not pertain to land use.
That's correct. So that would be a separate project.
Okay.
Outside the scope of this.
All right. Well, what about 97 and 98?
If there's 98, there is sections that will be deleted. If you'd like me to bring those forward to you guys so you can see them, ultimately you guys don't necessarily vote on those, although I guess you can. We can bring those forward because 98 has the street specs that are now being folded into the UDO.
And we talked about driveways and there was other things.
That's right. But those can be. I will provide you those. I can provide those.
So
for
Section 97 and 98. That's what was discussed in the audit.
Yep. Anything that is of relevant that is to be stricken or modified.
So that the council will vote on no ordinance change when they vote on the UDO, right?
They can, yes.
Simultaneously
Yeah,
or serially,
ideally,
whatever.
yes. That's correct. Yep.
And Chad, if I want to do something with the town park regulations, I got to write a letter to my council member. I mean, if you don't think it's appropriate for planning board to deal with it, it's,
I don't know. I don't know if appropriate is the right word. I'm kind of searching for a word on that. I think it would be a separate project. I think we would probably need to. I mean, you can bring it up with a council member.
As a citizen.
Ultimately, staff would need to. I deal with Municode in very short versions of it, especially dealing with events in the park. Applying those rules to that, but that's through Municode. I would need to.
You'd be need to be
I would
given
need
direction
I would need to be given direction from
or
from
a
the
prerogative
administrator.
to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Sounds
all right.
Candidate platform to me.
Hey, shh, you didn't hear him say that. All right, you've answered my question. Richard, do you want to start us off with Article 1?
I do not have Article 1 in front of me, so I'm going to defer to Ron here.
Okay, Ron?
It should be in your book, May 18th.
I don't know why, but I don't see it.
Article 1, I didn't have much on other than the same thing.
I have something on page 1
That just
dash
had
1.
the same thing you did about how we refer to the land use plan, how we parentheses it. I guess we should just be consistent. I think we're calling it now the comprehensive plan, right?
Okay,
And
pardon.
that's-
Which page?
Well, it starts out on just page 1-1. In 1.3A, we call it the CAMA land use plan, parentheses, comprehensive plan. And I guess in my mind, it should be the other way around.
So,
The official name is now the comprehensive plan, right?
You're on page 113.
CAMA land use plan has been stricken.
Yeah, but then we got parentheses around. I didn't understand. It seems like whatever that means, there should be just the official name in there, and that's it.
The statute refers to land use plans. I mean, there's a definition form that says that land use plan, comprehensive land use plan, all are used interchangeably. But the word comprehensive plan is used specifically in the statute. And so that, you guys are going to have multiple different iterations of that plan over the years, but it's still going to be the comprehensive plan, whatever year it is,
Exactly.
and called whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
but it is your comprehensive plan.
Well, I agree with Ron to the point, too, where comprehensive plan, I believe, is a official document, so it should at least be capitalized.
Sure.
Capital C, capital P.
Yep, we can do
And
that.
we're going to come to about a dozen locations in Article 2 where it is not. And I'll just mention it at the time, but
Sure.
I think word search
That-
through it.
That's an easy fix. I saw that comment too, but yeah, that's not a. Yep.
I have something else on page 1-1.
Good. Mhm.
And it has to do with it. And Chad, you tell me if I'm nitpicking or these are kind of housekeeping things, but I think they're important. The last sentence in 1.3a, it talks about conserving the value of buildings and encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout the jurisdiction. I thought it isn't just the value of buildings, but it's the value of land. So I put in and Chad, I'm looking to you here to tell me to get over it. But I'm saying conserving the value of buildings and land, comma, encouraging the most appropriate use of land throughout.
So I will never tell you to, get over yourself or anything like that. I think we've hired a great expert and consultant to come up with language that works. This is language that works for me. I would say if there is a bigger issue with the whole overall concept of it, or if there's a typo, I think there is bigger things
All right,
to look
I'll
at.
back off of that. Can we go to 1.3c, and it's in the second line, when it talks about provided for the coordination of streets within, and I'd like to say, and adjacent to proposed subdivisions, so that we're not ignoring, it has to be directly adjacent, but I think that adjacent roads are something that needs to be in consideration when a subdivision is being
Adjoining.
enacted.
Does
Well,
that
I just said-
change this completely,
Well,
Wes, when
it could be
comes to-
adjoining. I said adjacent roads, but yeah, there could be a better word.
My question to
Does the road have to be interior to the
This isn't a
subdivision?
regulatory provision. This is just talking about the general enabling authority, and that, I mean, if you're talking about the specific regulations, that's where we're in
Okay.
Article
All
4.
right, I'll back on this one too. And that'll kind of set my tone as to what I'm going to ignore from this point forward. I'm up to 1-3. Anybody have anything coming up with that? I'm going to back off 1.6. Where it talks about lawful and then it talks about, I thought it was confusing, but again, if it's not a regulatory, if 1.6 isn't regulatory, then it doesn't matter.
Let's no. I mean, I want to answer your question. Does not achieve lawful non-conforming status. Is that the question?
Well, it has to do with the fifth sentence down, which says constitute a lawful, and I would say an unlawful, because then it talks about it does not achieve lawful non-conforming. So it's saying the right thing. It just reads, I think, poorly.
So this is saying that. Okay.
We have a definition for lawful non-conforming, and that means something.
It's a legal nonconformity.
legal.
It
Right.
is in other words, you modify the ordinance and change the setback, and then it
But-
creates a legal nonconformity.
Yeah,
go.
I'm done.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be stated. I'm finished with section or Article 1. Anybody else have anything? Richard?
Yeah,
Anything on
got
Article 1?
Good,
Ron?
good. I'm good with it.
Civil?
No.
Okay, we have finished with the first article.
So let me just kind of as a formality, Article 1, revision wise, is one step closer potentially as the overall body of work to making a recommendation to
The
council.
we have the comp plan being modified
Right.
as to be capitalized as a change in Article 1.
Okay. Do
And
we need to
throughout.
vote on that?
No.
Okay.
No, we'll vote on it unless Wes thinks otherwise. But
What are you
in my
talking about?
opinion, we would vote.
Well,
on this as an
we've now
overall
made it
document.
official because we've brought up all of our.
I mean, this is the third time we have now.
I
We
know.
will comb through this
Yeah,
to
but
a
we're not
degree.
voting until we get done with the whole.
Well, he
Correct.
said a vote wouldn't
Yes.
be needed.
No,
I don't.
yeah.
But I think
No.
even a straw vote that
We're
we're
good.
probably not going to revisit Article 1 unless we have a dream about something.
And don't go to sleep.
It's reserved the right to revisit anything until the final vote.
Yes, of course, sir.
I mean, when you read the whole book, something may pop up. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, now we're getting into.
Definition would be the most place I would be concerned is that maybe somebody says there's a definition missing or it doesn't match what something that is a small thing that could come up. But
I'll take it back. We're not approving anything. We're just saying that
Your Article 2.
we've taken our third
Clean one.
stab at Article 1.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting into Article
Talking about the
2.
one-
I've got some things that have to do with
I might need to
vacancies
use that
and
as a reference.
attendance at meetings.
Sorry.
Let's start over with Sybil. Do you have anything on the first part of Article 2?
No. No.
My questions come in at 2.13, so we'll wait till you get there. 2.13. But
Okay.
let's go, let's
All right, good.
continue,
That
continue.
makes it easier.
Yes.
Okay,
you continue.
213. Ron, anything in the initial? Jerry has something in 2.13. Do you have something prior to that?
gotta see what section this is. What section is this? I'm on page 211.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've
that's
got
your
something
2.13.
prior to that, but can I bring that
Go
up,
ahead.
please?
Yeah.
Under 2.3 Planning Board, which is us, and it has to do with membership vacancies and meetings, under item number 3, it's really talking about the removal of a planning board member due to absences. the last sentence in Bravo 3, it says the town council may remove and replace any member who is absent from 2 consecutive, I'd like to say, regular meetings.
Yeah.
Because if we have a special meeting that comes up, it may be, a planning board member may be unavailable.
Okay.
Yeah, by that standard, I could have been thrown off.
Chad, what do you think? I think special meetings are a little bit different when it comes to attendance, because they can be short scheduled.
The intent of the word monthly is that it is your regular meeting, but it's fine to say
Regular monthly meetings.
Yeah, I mean, and everything's going to be looked at a case-by-case basis. I
Well, we
mean,
have 2 regular meetings a month now,
Sure.
pre-scheduled with the planning board.
I mean, and
So,
we all, I mean, not, we had an absence for 2 meetings in a row last month. That doesn't mean we're going to kick him off either. So not
well, it says
calling you out or
it
anything.
says
but
council
there's
may
certain
remove.
yeah,
May remove.
there's certain situations that happen with every single thing. I mean, people get sick, things happen. I don't think I've seen this once in my 10 years of being in this business, and it was warranted. So, it would, and that would also come in from the direction of the person to my left over here too. So there's, yeah, I know that's in there for a reason.
we can put regular
Yeah.
in there and move on. Sounds good.
Okay. Jerry said something about 3.13.
I think
you up to
I'm
that
in
point now?
I think I'm in.
I'm asking.
2.12.
All right, 2.2. Go for it, Ron.
2.12, I think, section G, temporary use permit, paragraph 5. And I think this section may be a new section, right? But anyway, on 5, where it talks about tents or similar structures,
What page are you on, please?
2-11,
Okay.
which I believe is in section 2.12, common review procedures. Subsection G, temporary use permits. Item 5, temporary or similar structure to be we don't address anything on wind. Is that covered someplace else? I mean, it seems like if we're allowing tents to be put up, they should have some sort of certification on wind resistance. Is there something that's in the state or, and then,
I don't think there's a building code for tents. It wouldn't trigger anything for a tent.
and then if there's a named storm come, they got to take it down, or what's our rules
I
on that?
mean,
I mean-
procedurally, we would advise people to batten down the hatches, clean up yards, make sure everything is secured.
Yeah,
But as far as a building, a building permit would not be issued for that. So there's
But no, this is a temporary use permit,
that's correct. And this is
not a
language that we're pulling in from, I believe, 97. But these are, they're reviewed by fire.
all that.
it-
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So-
what I thought this was is like
Oh.
there's an event going on someplace.
So-
There's a special use
okay.
and there's a tent.
Sorry,
And here
my-
comes a hurricane. What do we do?
Yeah, sorry.
the
My
rules? They have
mind
to
was
take it-
somewhere else.
They have to
Um,
take it down, or is there some standards?
Yeah,
mean-
so they would be advised that if there was a situation in the park or permit that would be issued, yes, they would have to take that down.
So the
I'm
But
sure
that's
th-
step
And I'm
outside
sure
of this,
it-
really.
It really
yeah.
would be. And then
Yeah.
ultimately, I'm sure a rental company, if they're involved, would probably make them take it down as well. So, yes.
But there's nothing in this
or nothing
document
needs to be here.
here.
It's
That's
implied.
really police.
Well, just like cabanas on the beach, that is not in the UDO.
Yeah,
That's
right.
a municipal code
Yeah,
item that
yeah.
deals with wind and cabanas.
Yeah.
Right. I had an item, I missed it here on 2.5, Technical Review Committee and Procedure. And it is in item number 1, and it talks about the purpose of the Technical Review Committee, the TRC, to facilitate communications and coordination between departments responsible for development review. I believe we also discussed, and maybe it's somewhere else, but we talked about the TRC being brought in for special events, because they would need to have their input into a special event as town staff might request.
Yes.
Is that somewhere else? I couldn't
Yeah.
find it somewhere else.
It's somewhere else. It should be under, it was in the old Article 6. I don't know where Wes has moved it, but
This was in
Under-
Article 3.02 and 3.03
Yeah, so under
before.
a temporary event or special event procedure, it would be
Yep.
that staff would have the discretion to
They-
use the TRC process.
They still can because it
Yeah.
says may be used to review all applications for any application for development approval.
Okay, all right. I just didn't know if it
Okay.
included special events.
It would.
Okay.
Yep.
And in terms of the special event, I mean, what procedure does staff, what expertise does staff bring to overseeing?
So like an event in the park,
Yep.
the expertise of parking,
Is that outside of our conversation really here now?
yes and no, but I'll just address it. We look at parking, how much parking you have, is the date available. We bring police, fire, and Public Works into this as well, because Public Works is in charge of the barricades, the cones, what goes in there, the setup of the operations. We bring in Sendai, who or administration on that part as far as potentially being there, but also coordinating with other departments. Police is especially with the parking control and the traffic flow. We bring them involved, and then fire on anything else that's not covered as well. So
Do we do any events where they use temporary staging, or all events in
yeah,
existing?
that's this. Now we're getting outside of the
Yeah,
scope of the
yeah.
conversation, but
That's why we have a
that's
gazebo.
why we built the gazebo.
And yeah,
Okay.
in the temporary use permit section specific to the park, it says any temporary events permitted in the Sunset Beach Town Park must meet the standards contained in Chapter 99 of the Town Code.
Okay.
Okay.
I had an item on 2.7. We're still not at 2.13
Mine's
yet,
very simple.
Jerry. And it has to do under conflict of interests, 2.7. We refer to an associational relationship. And that to me is a nothing burger.
Where's
It's
where
under A,
specifically?
the last two words in 2.7a, and it says close familial, which is family,
Yeah.
I guess, business or other associational relationship. An associational, I don't know what that is. I say direct relationship, where you are directly related to that. And I only bring it up because conflict of interest is something that has been mentioned
Sure.
a number of times, and
I would think
So-
of it as a good friendship. If your
Uh,
golfing buddy,
Sure. And if I may,
you
sorry
can't
to
do that in a
interject,
small town.
Sybil.
You know
Um,
everybody,
This language is straight from the statute. It's not my language. And
so you're comfortable with associational.
well, ultimately, the conflict of interest has to get run up the ladder to legal counsel. And if
Okay.
there's further question, then really it goes to the man in the black robe.
I'll
Yeah.
withdraw.
Well, I'm a little concerned because, I mean, association.
I didn't write this language. The General Assembly did, and it is the law that we're
I'm going to
bound
withdraw
to.
my my comment
Yeah.
because if it started there, then
Right. It's
I-
outside of our.
Yeah,
We
it
can't mess with
apparently
it.
has worked. So
There's case
I mean,
law and everything.
Richard,
else.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, my concern is that an associational relationship, I'm a member of a homeowners association, and
So
that
someone can challenge whether or not you have a conflict, and you guys can go to court and have a grand old time based on that word. But it is the word that is in the statute.
okay. Well, I'm more concerned about, well, whatever. If it's in the statute and somebody takes advantage of it to
Then
imply-
maybe the legislation will
to
change in
imply
the
that
future. Yeah.
someone, for
Yep.
instance, on a homeowners association that is voting on
Sure.
improvements to that homeowners association, does that represent, I would argue that it represents better insight into what's going on, but someone might argue that that person has a direct conflict of interest. And I don't want to go to court over that.
Well, they can make you go to court whether you want to or not.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, have we finished with 2.7? 2.8 through 11 is reserved. We're at 2.12. We're almost to Jerry's 2.13.
Not a big deal.
Under 2.12, we then get into sign permits, which is F. And I have a question for Wes when it comes to F1, E as in Edward. And it says the value of the sign or sign structure. Do we mean the cost, or do we mean the value in its purpose?
No, the monetary. I mean, we can put the word monetary there. It's really for determining if a sign's non-conforming. If it like there's a non-conforming sign, it triggers a provision that would make them have to tear it down based on the cost. So
Okay. So this is the cost of the sign.
Yeah.
we can say that we can replace value with. I mean, Chad would know that it's not. Chad would know that it's financial.
I mean, he could say it's not needed, meaning that it's not, it has no value. But you're referring to
The
the
cost of
cost.
structure.
That's correct.
All right,
It is.
okay.
It is the cost. So are we leaving it as is,
Well, I'd change it.
or change it to cost?
I'd change it to cost, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you please tell me one more time where you are? Because I can't find it.
I'm on page 2-10.
A minute ago it was 212. All right.
No, that was the section.
Okay, thank you.
And we deal with the new regulations about tree removal in
That's in
Article
3.35.
Okay, so this is all right. Got it.
All right, Jerry?
This is just out of curiosity more than anything. On C1, 200 square feet of impervious coverage. Has that always been a rule?
No, the planning board initiated that, Ron, what, maybe 5 years ago? Sibley,
Yeah.
I think you were on the board at the time.
Yeah.
They
Is
had to
that-
have something to trigger it, and it can't be 5 square feet of impervious, so they said, all right, 200.
square feet.
I mean, I'm sure it's arbitrary, but
Yeah.
they needed to
Well,
have
we
a
were thinking
trigger.
around a 15 by
Well, if you
15,
know-
which was 225 is kind of where we're at, and then we moved it
Okay.
down to
I'm just
200.
reflecting on what the dentist had to do, Sunset Dental, on his impervious coverage improvements on stormwater management.
No, so
That-
that's
He could have bought the lot next door and put a stormwater detention
Attention,
on it.
yeah, but he opted not to do that. But I'm just, the expense of going 200 square feet.
now you are different with two different things. You're dealing
Okay.
with non-residential entity, which is
Residential, I think.
residential. So if you
Yeah,
do
It was like 400,
if you do an addition, if you
Yeah.
keep it under 200,
that's it.
you don't
But
have
if you
to
do
do-
more, a 10 by 20 on the residential houses, I don't think it's terribly big, but still, the cost of doing that.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it triggers the
Yeah,
stormwater study.
it was
Yeah,
sort
and
of
that's-
studied.
It's the
I think
trigger.
you have to have a trigger point.
Right.
So
We were originally in discussions, we were thinking like 15 by 15, 225.
Mhm.
Like a patio or a storage shed, or
Yeah.
that's
I
where
just-
we're at. That would trigger enough of additional coverage of the ground to trigger a study. And I don't know how we got from, we just rounded to the 200, I think.
are you looking to change that? Are you
No,
looking
I'm
to
just,
increase it?
I'm just questioning
wanted to
the
discuss.
the methodology of
Yeah.
how we're coming up
Yep.
with 200
I guess
feet.
while we're on this question, and maybe we don't have the stormwater person here, and I thought I understood this 1.5 inches, but this 1.5 inches doesn't have a time frame, right?
An inch and a half in a
In
24-hour
a
Yeah.
day. In a
Yeah.
day.
It doesn't really say that anywhere. That's in a 24-hour period. In either of those two, it occurs twice.
It's in the NC Department of Quality Stormwater Design BMT manual, and so I mean they base it on the 24-hour. It's a 24-hour.
rain event.
So, because we say 1.5 inches of rainfall or less, but so we don't. It wouldn't be appropriate to say in any 24-hour period.
This is coming straight from their language too, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean,
Is there
I mean, I thought
you're
that-
you're under the Brunswick County stormwater management ordinance, and you have additional rules above and beyond theirs, but their default is the 24-hour 1.5 inch.
Would you be more comfortable if it was written here? The only problem is if they change it, we have to make sure we go back and change it here. But
Well,
Yeah.
somehow we put the inches in because that inch
True.
number might seem like a choice, we could have one or we could have two, but we picked 1.5 inches. I think that's kind of pretty normal. But it just occurs twice actually in this on this same page, 2-116. The first top, all surface generated by 1 1/2 inches of rainfall, and then it occurs down in C1, about 6 sentences down, generated by 1 1/2 inch. But neither of them talk about the time. And being an engineer, I guess, it just bugs me that you have a volume of water and no time in there, that you need both.
I know this.
To determine runoff, you need both. It's
Well,
the amount of rain per time period.
What I think they're getting at here is they're getting at how many gallons do you need to be able to retain on your property?
Yeah, but retention also based on time. It's so X can be absorbed through the ground or run off, or not run off. So
I mean-
time has to be in there somewhere.
I agree you're right as an engineer, but I think what they're getting at is they're
Well,
trying
they're
to come
getting
up
at
with
that
a
the
volume.
24 hours occur someplace else.
I mean,
in
to
my
the-
mind, it should be with
I mean,
the
to the
number.
person who's in this every day, I mean, I know it's implied. I know it's been instilled in me for 10 years. It's 1.5 inches in every 24 hours.
Okay, then put it in.
Then put it in.
Yeah.
But
I
if
mean,
you go to the dentist was looking at Dr. Jones was looking at a capacity underneath this parking lot to hold so many gallons. So you take all the impervious area, the vertical dimension is 1.5 inches, and that gives you a number of gallons or cubic feet of water
That's
that
correct.
have to be able to be stored on site. Time doesn't come into that specific calculation.
That's right.
But we had an issue with Eastwood Bluffs where we had more than 1.5 inches of rain. So he was not responsible to retain that on his property.
That's correct. Yep.
Mhm.
The standard has been 1.5 inches. That may change in the future. You
Think about
guys
that,
may
Ron, though. I think
initiate.
they're talking about how many cubic feet of water you have to have capacity on your property to hold.
And I can't remember the exact formula, but it's basically
could
the
be wrong.
quantity equals the land coefficient value times the amount of impervious surface times the area. And there's a value associated with each different ground type, whether it's grass, impervious, etc. And the calculation refers to how much water enters a site will then be leaving the site based upon what's on the ground. And so that's and so the standard has been, we want to make sure that we are keeping the first 1.5 inches on our site and not sending it to our neighbors. Beyond that, it can go. But that's
Okay.
I'm not an
I
engineer,
forgot to
but
pull up the
okay.
town form to see what it says.
Let's think about that because you could have a point. I just didn't
I'll
look
have
at
to
it that
pull
way.
it. I know there's a form online that for submittal. So
I'm going to go
Well,
back to
are these two separate issues? Because I understand the issue, because I've dealt with this in my own buildings of homes. Is this, yes, there's a certain amount of volume you need to engineer to stay on your property so it doesn't run on anybody else's. But is there another standard in terms of runoff above and beyond what I can store on my property?
So, I mean, it's basically saying runoff is going to exist if our goal is that we create a solution that we keep the first 1.5 inches. In most storm events, that'll be sufficient. And a 500-year event, not going to work, and we may be sending water everywhere.
Right.
so will everybody else.
And so will everyone else. Yeah.
Can I go back to a housekeeping issue?
Yep.
I'm not trying to divert this, but I think we've beaten it.
Well, I think I'll just make one last comment. When you say the first 1.5 inches, that does infer a time element.
I don't think so.
Well, yeah, it's rain starts at 10 o'clock. You got 1.5 inches, and then the clock stops.
It's a calculation of a volume of capacity to retain on your site, which can be in a stormwater detention pond or another engineered solution. It has
Right.
a capacity. It has a volume.
That's right.
I think the
Well,
time plays
I guess
little in this.
we've beat it. That
The
so
the
maybe
calculations
our
taken.
stormwater expert can, whoever that is, Chad or somebody else, can make sure it's
The,
correct.
the manuals take into account time, etc., and the formula takes that into account, but it tries to deduct this into
But that's only
simple
talking about absorption rates for various types of
ground cover.
Right.
ground.
That's
Whether it be
right.
gravel, whether it be grass,
That's right.
whether it be
Yeah.
a
So
cornfield.
it could all
That's
be,
right.
the time element could be all buried into those standards.
Yes, that's right.
And it's the porosity. There's
That's
a term-
correct.
there's an
Yes,
you
that's
know
right.
that term.
It's the ground cover coefficient.
All right. I have
Yeah.
a thing on number. Go to page 2-14 M for permit revocation, housekeeping. The number 2 shouldn't be a number 2. It should be B above, because it's the second item that has to do with if the following occurs, and it's A. Well, you can read it for yourself. The number 2,
Should
it
be-
says the permit was issued based on erroneous information. That should be B above. We all of a sudden created it, moved it down into 2, and every other 3 should be 2, and 4 should be 3, and 5 should be 4. And now that I've totally confused everybody and myself.
Got it.
It's just an indentation issue.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. All right, we were in 2.13, a very topical issue. For Jerry, did you have more on
No.
that
It
one?
was just
I have just one
clarification
item.
issue.
Okay, fire.
On 2.1, on page 2-15,
Mhm.
section 2.13B2, the last sentence in that section, for the purposes of this section, comma, residential development shall include single-family and duplex dwellings, which are single-family in our mind. We don't need to say there, and also multifamily dwellings?
No. There was a reason that we put this in here, but I think it was just to clarify because
Yeah, because single
Be-
family and duplex are
same
considered
thing.
single family in the building code as well.
in your existing language just says residential development, but you all didn't specify what that was when that language was. But the intent was it was to subject it to single family and duplex,
Duplexes.
and we're just clarifying that there.
So that 45% doesn't apply to multifamily?
No, I don't believe so. It does not. The multifamily would often trigger your
Preliminary and final plat
it-
approvals,
that's right, and so they do start subject to
state stormwater,
state stormwater and all this.
All the
yeah,
other
yeah.
stuff.
So this is specific to.
single family residential.
That's right.
All right,
And
Yep.
so that includes all townhouses and stuff too? Is that
No. Townhouse is multifamily. That's 3 or more units attached.
Talking about single family or duplexes.
This is you guys were putting in a rule for stormwater for basically your platted lots, and that's what this is referring to.
Okay.
Sybil, do you have anything else in 2.13?
No.
All right, I have one item. Again, it's housekeeping. It has to do with C, Stormwater Management Plan and Erosion Control, where we talk about 2.13B3.
Should be 4.
Well, yeah, because
Yep.
the 3 only refers to CR1, 2, and AF1.
that's right.
So that should be, the 3 should be a 4.
Yep, I've got that noted. Thank you.
2.13.
Yeah, because
2.13B.
we added a
2.13.
2.13B3.
See where that is, Katie? It's under C, Stormwater.
Yep.
On 2.13. Number 1.
Mhm.
Because also later on must be controlled and treated in accordance with 3 above.
Number 4.
That
Yep.
should also be 4. Okay.
Yep.
So there's 2 changes there
That's correct.
in that
Mhm.
number 1, C1.
Yep.
Okay. I had missed that one until I just read it out loud now. Does anybody have anything in 2.14?
I do, if that's appropriate.
Yes.
I want to make the recommendation, or as in section A2D,
Yes.
that we change it to non-residential projects 10,000 square feet or less. not less than 10,000. That would move a major to anything over 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
Is that appropriate?
So you want to say projects whereby,
Essentially, I'm moving that threshold from 9,999 to
how are you going to state this? Can you
It'd
state
just
it
be
again?
10,000 square feet or less.
Yep.
It is.
But does the word whereby come out of here?
I just would rather have the threshold at 10. I mean,
And I want to go by your recommendation. The reason why we did the major at
okay.
10 because that's going to trigger a state stormwater
Then never
on
mind.
impervious
I'll
coverage.
take it
But
back then.
but you may have a good reason. I'm not sure.
No, I was thinking round starting at 10,000 square feet. It's fine. I'll leave it where it is. I forgot the whole state stormwater aspect of that. So never mind.
And I made a note here on the same section that the definitions on page 728 and 729 do not seem to be consistent with this section. I'm trying to figure out what I meant here. Maybe in A, the 4 or fewer dwelling units, and
Let
on
me see.
728, I must have looked ahead here in the definitions. Site plan major. Oh, site plan minor, 2 or fewer in that definition. So there's an inconsistency there, but should be 4 in the definition.
Yeah, I think that is right. It should be
Site
4.
plan minor on page 7.7-29. Because A says proposals for single family residential and attached consisting of 4 or fewer dwellings. And then on site plan minor on page 729, consisting of 2 or fewer dwellings.
I think we established it at 4. I think
4.
you're right.
So I think the definition is
And
the one
it
that
doesn't mean anything other than it just was a number,
And
so
it has
major
Chad's-
versus minor.
It has Chad's 10,000 in that definition too, so I guess we need to make sure that also is consistent.
Are you looking at that definition, Chad?
I am not.
Can you go to 729?
Page 729.
I can't remember. We had some conversation about this.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be 4 in my
Yeah,
opinion. I think
that's
about
what
it.
I remember. What a planning board would, don't you remember us going through that at 4?
4.
And it doesn't mean anything other than it triggered a minor versus major site plan.
Got it.
We were trying to make it a little easier on.
Yes. I think that
like a
2 in the
townhouse.
definitions needs to be 4, right?
Yeah, I think the 2 needs to be 4 on
Yep.
page 729.
Yep.
Good find, Ron.
Yeah, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then.
I always have a problem when we list stuff because we're bound to miss something or a brand new technology comes out and it's a new thing. But on 2.14A, which is where we are, A2C, we talk about accessory structures, construction, installation of fences, and then we start listing things like fences, walls, piers, docks, decks, stairs, signs, and driveways. We put a period. I extended that. I'd either say don't list individuals, just call them accessory structures or driveways, etc., and similar ancillary support items. Again, there's 2 ways of going at it. You can list none, or you can say, or similar ancillary support structures, support items.
Catch all.
Yeah. So maybe there's a reason that we want to start listing it so citizens, applicants know the types of things we're talking about here. It can be a benefit to that, but we can't just put a period there,
So so it would be comma driveways
etc.
and
And similar ancillary support
and
items.
or similar.
And the same thing really takes place down on 3A, right below that on page 2-17, for accessory structures less than 150 square feet. Again, we list fences, walls, piers, docks, decks, stairs. I also have, I guess, feeling, because I'm a citizen, has to ask requests for permits in applications. Under 3A, we're talking about needing a licensed professional engineer, and it's less than 150 square feet. I would think a hand-drawn sketch satisfactory to the UDO administrator or the planning director or the planning department with approximate dimensions on it would suffice.
For 3A, and that's
Yeah.
what that's calling out there.
Do not require.
Correct. Yeah.
But
There's
but
not in there.
yeah, I know. But okay, I didn't state that properly.
Okay.
But they have to provide something.
Sure.
We need to tell them what they need to provide.
Okay.
And that's I misspoke here. I
Okay.
misread my own note.
So you're saying you just need a sketch?
Just
And I
add just a hand-drawn sketch with approximate dimensions.
Okay.
They need to know what do I need to bring to the planning department.
Okay. I think we
We
had this-
always require a site plan for everything, so.
had a discussion about this, but so are you comfortable with saying a hand-drawn sketch with approximate dimensions may be sufficient? And this is really just for accessory structures, decks, piers, etc.
And you go to 4 right below that, which again is on page 2-17, and it's 2.14.4. We talk about Appendix A. There is no Appendix A in the new UDO
Sorry.
or in the revised UDO
Well, let me ask you this.
because that used to be definitions.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Chairman, as the board. When a minor site plan is triggered, this is not on a residential entity. This is, wait a minute.
Yeah, it
Yes,
could
it
be.
is. Never mind.
For a few. Minor site plan shall include all requirements
Yes.
provided in.
Yeah.
Appendix A, and there is no
Yeah.
Appendix A. That used to be our definitions.
You need
So this minor site plan is only for commercial or both?
No, I misspoke. My
we need to
apologies.
get Appendix A to you. It's got submission requirements and it's a table. God, I
Oh,
thought
there
that
is
that
an
was-
Appendix A.
There is an Appendix A that was provided at some time prior, but we'll make sure that that is given to you ASAP.
Okay.
Was it in this section
Was it?
originally? Too?
It was given to you with initial Article 2, I believe, some time ago.
That's not this.
Nope.
Would it have been at the end of Article 2?
Probably at the end, yeah.
I don't see it.
Yeah, let me make sure that that's provided in addition to that any of the Muni Code items.
Yeah. We had an extra page there of definitions and measurements.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
And we also have the same thing as in B for major site plan under,
Yep.
Number 5.
It's in there as well.
okay. Anybody have anything in anything more in 2.14 special review procedures?
2.14, Section 8, major site plans,
Page?
page 2-18,
Gotcha.
Section 2A, residential developments of 5 to 10 dwelling units, and that just be 5 or more. What's the 210 being in there? I think we did correct that someplace down the road. I got that in pink, which means I think we covered it. It's just the 210 is not needed. It's 5 or more is a major site plan. Because 4 are down are minors.
I thought we had something there, but
I think I did a pink highlight there, which means I think we covered it previously. And it just, I'm showing it just not picked up.
Yep.
It's fine
you
with
agree,
me.
Wes, that the 10 should be taken out?
Yes.
just 5 or more or whatever.
Yep.
And that on a lot, is that needed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 or more. Does under number 7, this I'm on page 2-19. I had marked on 7F as in Frank. Major site plan approval expires 24 months from the date of approval. Isn't there a caveat that goes unless substantial work is moving forward or something like that? Because a permit, a major site plan approval doesn't expire if they're continuing to work on it. Again, 7F, page 2-19.
Yeah, that's correct. There's the section in the end of this about vesting would trigger that
Okay.
requirement.
So it is addressed.
Yeah, this just basically says that your
Your start date has to be 24 months.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. You correct.
Okay. I have, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna keep my powder dry. I'm not gonna go heavy into this, but under special use permits, C and Charlie, I'm on page 2-19,
Mhm.
number 7. If we're just saying that owners of parcels of land abutting really, I guess, have standing, I think people that don't necessarily abut but are in the vicinity can also need to have standing.
And so you're looking at page
I'm on page 2-19,
number 7.
C7.
Yep.
And that we've had several things. Conditional zoning is certainly different. It's 500 feet. When we talk about variances in other sections, we talk about 150 feet.
That we had this discussion,
I
and so
know.
this
I
is
know.
a good question. But so the statutory notice requirement is for
I know we've talked about it.
this was a long time ago, but yes, we decided that we're going to defer to the state's requirement for notice, and that quasi-judicial procedure has a entirely different sets of rights attached to the applicant versus a legislative decision where anybody can show up and contest the approval or the application.
In this kind of standing, if you will, I think is important. We've seen it on conditional zoning, and we're going to be coming to that pretty quick here, where everybody in the town has an opinion, but there's people that are more directly affected.
Sure.
That can sometimes be drowned out by people that are not as directly affected, and sometimes the weight given to it is in conditional zoning. We have the ability to weigh it as we choose.
Correct.
So that's fine.
Yep.
But things like this for special use permits, it could be different. But okay, my powder's staying dry
Okay,
here.
okay.
The wording I can.
I did see that comment about the 150 or that you provided, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
As we move through 2.14,
What section are you in?
yeah, that's where we are now.
Okay, on the next page, 2-20. Again, the adjoining and abutting comes up in D3, but my question there is, and then maybe we just don't have that, or I'm not as familiar with the Board of Adjustment, how it works, but in section D, there are reasons to deny, modify, approve. The one thing that always seems to come up from the abutting people is the negative economic impacts. My house value is going down thing. But yet that's not listed. Is that the law that the Board of Adjustment does not consider negative economic
We're talking
impacts?
about under the variance part, right?
Well, under D, it says the Board of Adjustment
Yeah,
shall
there's-
approve, modify, or deny, and it lists like 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons
Yeah.
that they can deny, basically.
Well,
But none of them would say, I guess, is that considered in 3? No.
So to help establish standing, meaning that you can cross-examine other witnesses and more or less be a party to the hearing, one of the criteria for, claiming that you're, quote, have legal standing and you're going to suffer special damages is that you have an appraiser's report, that says that your property is going to be negatively affected. And then that would allow you to present evidence basically saying that,
So that can be a reason for denial. The board can say, we've looked at these appraisals and there is sufficient
well, that
negative, and we will deny this special request.
potentially, but it more or less allows you to be an active participant in the hearing. It sets you apart from the standard lay witness into someone that has legal standing that then that's not in here. That doesn't need to be in here. That's part of statutory requirements for legal standing for quasi-judicial hearings.
It just seemed like, compared to number 4, it's more objective than what's in item Roman numeral 4,
It says that
because 4 just says,
number 3, it says that the use will not adversely affect the use or any physical attribute of adjoining or abutting property.
but that's not value.
I think that if it's adversely affecting the use is pretty clear.
Doesn't this come right out of the North Carolina statutes?
These are the four criteria that have been used for case law, and so you guys used to have one that was much that has now been sort of hacked apart by past cases. So these are the 4 criteria that they use to evaluate special use permits.
A dumb question, maybe. Does any of this deal with the issue of what I would refer to as noise pollution?
I mean, yes, noise pollution can be part of this if again, if it's part of the special use permit, you have an engineer's report saying that whatever level of noise is going to cause some detrimental effect.
Noise would
to
come
you.
into Roman numeral 3, or in
That's-
whatever that III.
That's right. Yes.
Because it could affect the.
But there's no, because I know in the code that we had in NIAC, there was a decibel standard.
Well, we have one too.
Okay, and where is that?
That's in
It's in
town
the code.
town municipal code.
Right.
That-
It has to do with
okay.
time
Yeah.
of day
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
decibel count by the police.
and
Okay.
that's a different thing entirely. Someone wouldn't be able to operate under that.
Okay,
Period.
good. All right.
Are you satisfied, Ron?
Well, not really. It just, to me, it's the most common objection an adjoining, abutting property owner would have sometimes, and it doesn't seem like it's listed as a reason that the board can approve, modify, or deny an application. But if this is the state law, then
Could
so
that be a
it.
physical attribute, the devaluation of your property?
I would think so, but I think it would also allow, again, like I said, that citizen to then, be an active participant, have standing, allow them to cross-examine witnesses, evidence, etc., and more or less contest any of the contentions proposed by the applicant.
But that's not used to establish standing. That's used to establish what the board rules on as a thumbs up or down on an application.
The property value impacts that's one of the criteria that you can use to
Well-
establish standing.
Okay,
And that's
I guess I don't understand. this
straight.
thing going,
It's
so
a
move on.
complicated thing.
but we're only okay. I'm not gonna wake up the dead camel.
Yeah, it seems like it should be more explicit, but I
It
get
seems like
how,
to me, because it's the one, it's almost
Yeah.
half the people, if something's being built next to them, they say, well, it's going to lower my house value.
That's right, and they can say that all day long, but until they've got an appraiser's report that says that by a qualified
Right.
professional, that doesn't mean anything.
Well, it means something in the sense that they would gain standing.
That's
Yeah.
correct, that they would gain standing, but then it doesn't automatically mean that the
That they get
application
relief.
is going to be denied.
Right.
You know, you've got to prove. Then it is on that opponent to prove that, you know, for whatever reason, the use isn't, you know, in line with these
And we can't solve
evaluative
this here. Just
factors.
to me, it seems like the way this is written, the board doesn't take that into consideration. Though in reality, they probably somewhere it does. But
They take into again, they take it into account for establishing standing. It's rabble, 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 rabble. My property value, my property value. Okay, now I have an appraiser with a report under seal that says my property value is going to be impacted. Boom. Now you can come up here and whatever you have to say, we can take into account. Before, it's just hearsay,
So-
it's opinion testimony of a layperson, doesn't matter. There's two things. First, standing. Then, once you have standing, we can
submit
hear.
evidence.
Yes, submit evidence.
So the board, so that section D, they can approve, modify, or deny based on any evidence submitted.
Correct.
But to gain standing, these are the issues.
To gain standing, these are the issues.
Okay.
Moving on.
I mean,
So-
each of these cases is
I mean, I've got a quasi judicial book if anybody wants to borrow it and read it.
I don't know how long some of this will be around, but because I can tell you in Florida, one of the things they've now preempted all the local governments from taking into account multiple things related to this. I don't know if that's going to happen here, but further whittling is coming.
You try to scare us with that all the time.
Yeah, boy.
It's coming.
Hot diggity dog.
Let them come.
Well, that's why, in my mind, if it's explicit, that negative, well, they can wither it out, but it seems like one of the main reasons why a possible denial, I'm not saying denial is going to occur, but it seems like a major consideration for approving or denying a special use permit is how does it affect the economics of all the existing people around it. But I guess I'm looking at it from a more pragmatic way than a legal way.
Yeah, I've got something here.
You go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Richard, you got it.
On these number things are always,
Do the page first, please.
yeah, it's page 222,
Okay.
and it's the special use permit after approval shall expire. We expanded that to 2 years.
Where are you? I know the page you're on, but where are you on that page?
Item I at the bottom of the page.
On 2-22?
Yeah, page 2-22.
I don't have an eye on that page.
I know, our pages are not matching up.
Yeah.
I would go with the section.
You're talking about 221 I have is an eye at the bottom.
It talks about a special use permit after approval by the Board of Adjustment shall be
Yeah, I
filed.
see that. Yeah.
Okay.
What's your,
Well, it was 1 year. We expanded it to 2.
That's correct.
And why did we do that?
Materials.
Yeah,
Materials.
exactly right.
that's right.
Yeah.
And it could take longer. So if you don't have your stormwater or whatever else that is needed to actually go out and break ground, stormwater permits these days are sometimes taking a year and a half to even get
Okay.
approved.
Now, I'm just concerned because we're seeing a lot of dormant commercial structures. And
I have it.
if there's a way to give them a little incentive to pedal faster.
I have an item on page 2-22 as well, and it has to do D variance number 2. About halfway down, it talks about to the owners of all parcels of land abutting it talks about notice. So you have to abut the parcel of land.
That's correct.
I thought the wording before in 404F2 was neighbors within 150 feet.
It was. And we changed it in line with the other provision to just be based upon the statutory requirement.
I don't like that, but I guess I can't fight that.
Yeah, we went over that a lot.
And you guys can have it at 150 feet, but I think that this has been an issue in the past.
Well, there's
on-
several places that I've found that has been changed, and I guess we did change it. It's
We changed it just to defer straight to the minimum requirements of the statute, knowing that if it is something contentious, it's very those
you
folks are
can
gonna
establish standing somehow.
right, or they're gonna know about it.
Okay. I just don't like it because we have people that are absolutely less and less, but we have a significant population.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you go to E on page 2-23 for appeal, has to do with the appeal process in this variance.
Yep.
We again say any party who has standing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're changing that. I guess I want you to make me better understand it, that I'm not making this up. But the present section said any person interested in the outcome of the appeal of the application. And under 4.04 E2, the old section, 404 Edward 2, and that they can present evidence or arguments. So again, we're saying that in an appeal, it's not different.
An appeal, someone has to have standing,
Right.
legal standing, because let's say, Pete, you were issued a building permit to put an addition on your house, and somebody appealed that, and they live in Wilmington, and they have zero. That is going to have zero impact on.
I know,
it.
and we need to make the process efficient, and I understand. And I see what we did here now that I look at the old one.
Okay.
Never mind.
Okay.
We have to, I guess, be responsible to make the process work.
Well,
and anything we do to hobble it is
that's a statutory requirement.
all right. As we move through 2.15, anybody have anything?
Well, I guess final consideration on page 2-28, the final plat review as we had today, we've decided that planning board will be no longer involved in final plat review. So we're all comfortable with that. Just one final.
I'm not, but I agreed to it because I think we have
So
to
the way
move.
it's written, the planning board is out of finals.
Yeah. Does everybody understand that?
So
we're
we're
in preliminary plat approvals, but finals go to town staff.
like today's wouldn't have come to us.
Correct. Correct.
So we're all happy with that.
Happy and comfortable and okay with it are three different things.
Yes, I know. So I only bring that up as just
Richard,
because
do you
it's a
understand what he's saying?
It's sort of a major procedural.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate what he's saying.
Yes. I guess I have concerns, but I mean, by final plat approval, I mean, the major issues that really ought to engage the planning board hopefully have been resolved.
That's
I mean,
correct.
we've decided, okay, it's okay to do this.
Because everything is based off of what you approve as a board on the preliminary plat.
But you're the one that then has to make sure you don't miss anything.
That is correct.
Right.
Because we don't get a second. Now, do you have the ability to bring the TRC in?
Absolutely.
A
That's a critical
final-
Yeah.
critical component.
Now,
of
here's another thing. It also says in here that the makeup of the TRC, Technical Review Committee, will also consist or can consist of 2 planning board members. but it says it in here.
Why would that be a public? It's only 2.
Well, let's talk about that when we come to it. I'm very much excited about the planning board having, even if it's a silent participation, but a participation in the technical review committee's process. I think it helps us know what's coming before us in advance, and it's a time for another set of educated eyes and ears to review something in advance of the preliminary plat being reviewed by this board.
So and Lisa, just to provide some background, this was discussed whenever it was, many moons ago at this point, but on...
Do you know where that is stated in here? Can you tell us so we can move
it's
to it?
Section 2.5A3. The technical review committee may include, but not necessarily be limited to, the following individuals, departments: UDO administrator, building inspector, town administrator, fire department, police department, public works department, and or planning board chair / liaison.
Read that again. Just
Go
the last part.
Go to
And
2.15 in your book. 2.5 in your book.
2.5.
It's on page 2-5.
How convenient. Department and or chair / liaison.
Well, I think they were the goal was to make sure we didn't have a quorum in that meeting.
It was specific that it was to be, because we talked about this at length,
I know.
that it would be optional for one member. I don't think that it is a good idea, but this is you guys' document, so I think it affords the opportunity for interjecting political discretion where that's not the venue for it. That the venue for that is at the board meeting or at the council meeting. But that's the way that it's written up here. It's not a committee. That's right. It is correct. But that's how it's in here today.
I liked the way it was in here.
Okay.
May include, okay.
Does everybody see that? What it does is it gives the planning board, or at least the chair or a liaison, if you
Correct.
will, an opportunity to get notice
Yep.
of TRC meetings.
Yep.
But I mean, is there going to be a question that comes up every time a planning board member doesn't attend a TRC, why I wasn't invited? Because I have the authority to include you or to not include you.
Well, why would there be an incentive not to include?
Well, how do you schedule these meetings now?
Oftentimes
You just
these
send out an
meetings,
email to all the
It's
department
just
heads?
staff. It's made up of staff
That's
to
right.
review this, to prepare the document.
Right, so you
to
have
be
some sort of
brought-
meeting notice that goes to the staff, right?
When
Yeah, an email.
An email, an Outlook thing, scheduling a meeting or something.
That's correct.
Correct.
It's just the meeting takes on a different framework, different shape, different scope when an elected or appointed board member is present. I'm just providing this at context. We have it in here the way that it's in here. So Chad's given that opportunity, but it's supposed to be the goal is for, if there are technical items that have not been addressed or that need further review, that is the venue for it. And so I trust you all, but what happens is what can happen is, why isn't there a buffer there? Why aren't you doing that? Or why aren't you that? And that is not the purpose of them.
Yeah, but we can't require something that isn't already required.
That's right.
But
That's
we
right.
can,
Yeah.
and that is not the goal to try to make exception.
You hit the nail on the head. And so long as it's that way, I don't think it's a problem. It's when it turns into something,
Well,
you know,
It shouldn't.
Right. Well,
Well, can we put some language in here that would limit the role to up to be an observer? I mean, I don't necessarily want to participate, but I can see some real value
that
in
was
being
the
a little farther up the food chain in terms of how these are being developed and how they're being thought.
I mean, all this comes down to the
Yeah.
staff, the expertise of staff, and the reason why staff is hired on the expertise that goes into these meetings, but also the details of that comes in the staff report that comes to you.
Why don't we just leave it the way it is?
I think that's because we're rehashing a subject that we already
I
went
know.
through,
I know.
and you know
And it-
we've settled on what it is.
We do that a
Yeah.
lot. And that's another reason
Yeah.
for it
Okay.
not.
Well, I'm just concerned. I mean, the planning board's being asked to allocate further power, which I'm comfortable with.
No, we don't have power.
No, I mean, in terms of the final plat would no longer come to the planning board. It would be a staff approval, correct?
Got it.
And we were doing that for expediency.
Yes.
And
So-
with the idea that staff has their job to do anyway.
Correct.
So it's,
But I'm a little concerned why, in lieu of that, it wouldn't be appropriate to have some observational capability so we can understand what's going on, what's being asked for. I mean, there's a lot of elements to this.
Sure, but
that-
if the UDO administrator is doing his job, we don't run into any issues. And if I don't do my job, I'm going to have to answer to Lisa.
Well, great. And if we don't have a full understanding, and this is not, context has a lot to do with what finally arrives in terms of what we can and can't approve. And having a better understanding of the context might actually make everybody's life easier, not harder.
But if they're meeting code, if they're meeting the restrictions that we've had a part in making and,
With
and,
the
and
preliminary plat,
developing,
that's absolutely correct.
then they do their job. That's what we hire them for. We're paying them all this money, and now we're going to second guess them. I don't think that's
No,
right.
nobody's second guessing.
Well, then why is it so
this is
important that we be on
I
that
don't want to
board?
participate in the meeting. I want to observe it. I want to see the context of what happens in a technical review committee so I can have a better understanding of what's going to come before this planning board. I mean, this is common practice in the
I
private
think we already
sector.
have what we're searching for here. We obviously
Okay.
can't have a quorum, so I'm going to take half a loaf here. It's,
All right.
Well,
Ron,
and my only deal on the final plat thing, which is fine. That's what we agreed on.
which
I just
started this
I just want to
conversation.
give everybody a second look at, because to me it's a major process change from the old UDO to the new one. Is eliminating the planning board for the final, which makes sense, I guess, because we don't ever seem to. There's not much ever to do on the finals. My only concern on the finals was what makes it sort of weak is and you guys do the review, but I've never been able to go back to the original preliminary to see what was discussed, because some things are not. For instance, if during a preliminary plan, the applicant gets a question and goes, "Oh, we can do that. We'll do that. X function, not a requirement of the code." They just said, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. We'll do it." There's nothing I've ever been able to figure out, because I don't keep everything forever.
Sure.
Well, that guy said he was going to put a 5-foot sidewalk to the mail kiosk, and who checks to see that we actually got that?
Part of the final plat approval process is an inspection on site to make sure everything is installed based on the site plan that is
Yes,
given
but
in
that
place.
stuff, some of that stuff doesn't. Never mind. Doesn't,
No, no, you're
some of
not-
those
you're
kind of
making a
oral
good-
agreements or oral
If-
doesn't get to the plan. I mean, the final plan could go back to code, even though the guy might have stood here and said, "Yeah, that sounds a good idea. We can do that."
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking him, if you guys are asking someone to do something that they're not required to do,
And they
say
orally agree.
it's non-binding.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. With conditional zoning, it can be binding.
Right.
If you can put a condition on there, it's written. It's yeah.
I mean, it's not binding other than
Here's an example.
professionalism. Where if I knew that, I said, "Well, you guys said in here." And but anyway.
Here's an example. Dr. Jones's expansion in the dentist office. I brought up that they weren't required to put an alternate board fence like they had behind their original building to continue that on for the
Sure.
expansion, separating them from the residential. They said, that sounds like a good idea. We'll consider it. They now have done it. So, but if they hadn't done it, we couldn't say, hey, you said you were going to do this. No, they weren't required to put that fence up. They were required to do a buffer, but they weren't required to put a fence.
So, but that was part of the site plan review.
Didn't show it on the site plan.
Sure. Well, and so
Yeah, but in
that
go ahead.
they were able to do that, but that was part of the site plan review.
It didn't show it on the site plan.
But they ultimately complied, but they didn't have to.
Correct. I'm
So
just
that was
saying.
yeah, no, that's a good example, but that's just a voluntary
Correct.
So
example.
anything that they orally agreed to during the preliminary,
Yeah,
if it's
'cause
not a UDO requirement, it becomes solely voluntary.
The best practice is that staff should have a note of that and should have written it down and remind the applicant during the meeting, this was brought up. Where are we on this? And it is a delicate
you
balance,
do
not
that,
not
Chad.
saying,
Yeah.
hey, you have to do
And a lot
this
of this-
because they know that maybe we can't ask that, but where are we on that?
And a lot of this comes down to, I think I've only been a part of 3 preliminary plat approvals with this town. A lot of it came in after former staff and
So you're not
retention-
responsible for the sidewalk not being there, huh?
no comment.
Well, I mean, do we lose leverage in this? I mean,
No.
in
In my opinion, no,
Yeah.
because if
well,
I
if
was
you come,
asked,
go ahead.
if I was asking you to staff fully approve the preliminary plat on a staff level, then yeah, I can see where every one of your arguments are valid.
Okay,
Um,
how about if we move forward? I
Yeah,
think
sounds good to me.
That's
Well,
good.
well, I'm
Yeah,
not
just-
comfortable yet because right now I'd vote against this because I hate to say it, but there have been plats that have been approved, and it's the previous people that worked here specifically, and I've raised this issue about the lack of a sidewalk that should have been in the final plat.
And I will argue with you until forever is that should have been approved at a preliminary plat.
Right.
So you still have that power to look at preliminary plats. All right. So the final plat is based on the preliminary. I have very little and hardly any at all wiggle room when it comes to that final plat not matching the preliminary. That's all I'm doing is making sure
So
that
he's saying
final
it, the planning
matches
board
the
should have picked that up.
preliminary.
Yeah, the planning board should have picked that up, and it
Yes.
didn't. And now we're stuck with a situation where we've got a sidewalk to nowhere.
So even if you had the power at the final plat to look at that, you couldn't have said, well, you forgot this, you had to put this in. You could not have done that
Why?
because it should have been called at the preliminary.
But how
The
about if we-
final plat is based
So
on
what
the
happens in
preliminary.
that case? Richard brought this up, convinced us all that should have been there, and we vote 5 no's.
On the final plat?
Yes.
Yeah, on the final plat. Now
What
you go
happens-
back and you
Just-
fix it.
Just explain to me the process. What would happen?
So there's some legal jeopardy there. Ultimately, I believe the town probably has the right to mandate that sidewalk is on there, but it is gray. And so it is where that probably needed to be tabled. And there needed to be a discussion with town legal counsel on where things stand on requirements.
Good luck getting with that owner.
And then exactly. Oftentimes what happens is it was approved that way, and we need to align our final approval with what was initially approved. And so it's very much on a case by case basis. Well, believe me, I've had to deal with this on a lot of different items where someone is at the CO level and they don't have one of the clearly required things, and I've come in after the fact, and it goes through this whole legal legal jeopardy and figuring out what we're gonna make them do. So yeah,
I just feel personally that we need to have a process that works and is, I don't want to say streamlined, but that's sufficient.
Yep.
And for us to relook at something again, Ron hit it. We've looked at several finals, and it's like one today. It's, I'm not going to go through and look at each one of those things. If he says it's complete, I know he's looked at it.
right,
If it's blank, I'll say there must be a question here.
sure.
But so it isn't that really what we're talking about,
Yeah.
whether or not we're going to
But
give
it
up
does,
the
it does
final.
sort of highlight. Well, I agree with keeping it the way it is in here. I just wanted to let everybody have a second thought on it.
Right.
But
I'm fine.
maybe make sure it puts, I guess, what I hear today, more emphasis on the preliminary plat reviews.
That is the critical one.
Yes.
So that kind of goes back to Chairman Larkin's position on some TRC planning board liaisons in that, because
Drum roll, please.
if you fail to cross a T or dot an I in the preliminary, there's like no way to fix it later.
That's correct.
Not a lot.
So
Yeah.
do we have, I'm looking at you two guys.
Yep.
Sufficient stuff in our preliminary plat review procedures
Yes.
There
to
should
hopefully
be.
not have a sidewalk to nowhere later?
Usually, that preliminary plat should have gone through 3 or 4 iterations before it even gets to TRC. Then it's going to go through another one.
Mhm.
So it's usually been modified. Sometimes,
On average, 2 to 3 times since I've been here.
yeah,
At
before it
least,
even
before
gets
it gets to you.
to you guys, correcting things.
Like,
And to reinforce what he's saying, to have a set of eyes that is more in the planning mode of thought and observation is going to certainly be different than DPW's wants to look at fire, wants to look at how many hydrants are where and where's the access and egress. It's not. So every one of those members has a different focus.
silo.
It's a technical thing, but that's why when the preliminary gets to you, you're the planning board. You guys don't have to approve something there at the
If
first
it
blush.
meets all the minimum,
You do have to approve it. But if all the minimum requirements are not
met.
then it can be
Can
tabled.
we move
Yeah.
ahead?
Yep.
Yeah.
Does anybody object to us moving forward on this?
I guess I don't feel like we've come to a resolution. I think we've kind of circled it. I'm still not comfortable with foregoing a final plat approval. I understand what Chad's saying and the diligence that the staff puts into these things.
How do we resolve this? Do we
Take a
vote?
straw vote. Or take a vote of if is there an objection?
Well, this is important.
Sure.
I don't know that a straw vote's going to carry any
or
weight.
just have it make a motion or someone call for a motion on whether or not it should remain as currently drafted.
I
I'm-
move that it remains as currently drafted.
I
By
second.
that, you mean not in the existing UDOT today, but our revised?
Yes, that's what
Yeah,
we're discussing.
Okay.
So
I second.
All in
We
favor?
need a second.
I second.
Okay. Let's make sure we know what we're voting on. And it's been seconded in a discussion point now. We are voting to, in layman's terms, to not have the planning board look at a final plot plan. That is
Plat.
what we're voting on. That would be an affirmative vote, would say that.
Whoa, wait a
so
minute.
that would
I was
be,
going to say, you seconded the one thing.
No, I withdraw my second.
Yeah.
Then. My second
no.
was
Well, you could only do what the motion
okay.
was.
Great. So the motion again, Sybil. I'm sorry.
What was my motion?
Is to
The
adopt-
motion is to keep
adopt this.
the draft language the same, that staff would be reviewing
Final plats.
Right. So it's
And not the
section
planning board.
2.15, subparagraph F on the May 18th, 2023 draft of the UDO would remain as drafted.
No, wait a minute.
Which
Because-
means
Page
Some of y'all's
228.
number pages don't match the other ones of our numbered
It
pages.
Yeah, I'm having
the
the same
motion
issue,
is merely that final plats are staff review. Period.
Correct. That's the
Yeah.
layman's term of it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And I will second that.
Okay.
Someone has to make the original proposal.
We've discussed this until the horses no longer has.
So we're
heartbeat.
voting
Yeah,
that we're gonna,
Yeah, so we need to take a
We're going to
vote.
give up the opportunity to review final plats.
okay, so we have a second?
I seconded it. Call for vote?
Yeah,
Any further discussion?
Yes.
I
You're
made a
calling for vote.
motion, you call for the vote.
I'm calling for the vote.
Yes.
Yes, for me.
Yes, yes, yes for me.
Yes.
No.
All right, there we go. All right.
Thank you for that
Getting these-
discussion.
Getting these wordings right.
Mr. Chair, I know we are, I'm trying to not be mean or anything about this, but this is the third time we have looked at this. And I know we're somewhat moving at a snail's pace, but I'm not trying to rush you or put pressure on you, but I am getting some pressure to further this along as much as I can.
I hear you.
Okay.
Okay, but you
Um,
got a tough one coming.
Yeah.
So I'm fully aware.
on 2.1, well, this is on page 2-35. Under the planning board action, there's several areas where the comprehensive plan is listed. And again, we agreed that it would be capitalized C, capitalized P. All right, now, am I okay to move forward to the conditional zoning, section 2.17?
So the other thing I will say, if I, again, going into conditional zoning, that there is going to be, and I've seen some requests for changes to be made. I do ask you that you at least take mine and Wes's consideration of this, that there are some things that are not great practices and that some of the things that you are wishing to change, and that you have two very much expertise in this, that I think their voice needs to be heavily weighted into what moves forward to this.
So,
Yes.
so recognized.
Sure. Yeah, I would just say that the only other thing is you guys have gotten one of the most substantial CZ applications I've ever seen in my career as your first go round. It is unlikely that you will ever have such a thing should you be on this board for the next 30 years. Typically, it's just going to be one of those sites. So
Just
yeah,
as a caveat,
yeah.
there are going to be some things that have been at least unofficially voiced by elected members
sure.
of the town that they're looking for substantial things to be changed.
Yep.
But that'll happen when it comes to them.
Yep.
And there's also going to be requests that I'm not sure if we can legally do. So I'm looking forward to going through them, but
Yep. Well, it's fine. Let's jump in there.
Jump in there.
How do you want to do this? By person?
Uh,
Staying on this section? Just do it
yeah,
by
we're,
person.
I think that's probably a good idea. But
Leave me to last if you want.
okay.
Ron,
Why don't you go first, Ron?
yeah, why don't you go
So
first?
you might,
Ron?
you might.
Well, I can go. I'll happily. I'll take the first hit, Ron. One of the issues that did come up was the inability to service all of the meeting attendees.
Where are you in the?
I'm
in
at
the
the C
rules?
public input meeting. I think we need to require that this public input meeting be virtually broadcast.
Wes, can we legally do that? Make them virtually broadcast?
I don't know.
The irony here is that within Sunset Beach, there is not currently a facility that can handle the population of what occurred at the public meeting on March 31st, so that half of the people that wanted to attend were left in the parking lot.
Sure.
Part of that was because the YouTube was interrupted and interrupted and interrupted. So
Yeah.
that was a technical.
Yeah, but you know, it also wasn't a requirement, so I don't think they paid much attention to it, to be honest.
So just remember that is just the first. That's just the first bit of this process, and the goal is truly to help alleviate some of the pressure that town staff and the town boards are going to feel, and it is more or less It is the applicants are voluntold that they need to go hold a meeting. Short of that, we're kind of loose on what the requirements are. However, they kind of want to conduct the meeting, because remember, you're then going to have a public hearing that's noticed for planning board. Then you're going to have another public hearing that's noticed for town council. And at both of those meetings, you're also going to have public comment. So, there's
Something in support of Richard right here.
yeah,
In the conditional zoning agreement, one of the considerations that planning board can very quickly use and easily use and officially use
yeah,
is to address comments that came out of the first
sure, yep,
community meeting.
yep,
And so if that community meeting is not all inclusive,
yep.
now I think we need to be practical about this. You just open this door by saying we'll probably never have one that is this not only contentious but
Right.
large and encompassing.
Yeah.
Again, so we probably, I don't know that we can ever create a ordinance that.
Well, I sent out language that I thought should be added into sections.
I will throw this out there, and
Me too.
I dealt with this, a few of these conditional zonings when I was with Pender County. We required 2 public input meetings.
We can do that.
Well, like I say, my language is said, which is somewhat similar to that, is
So I mean,
that the one is the at least.
two
then-
2 meetings is not outside of the norm in this reading as good planning practice when it comes to conditional zoning.
Yeah, because the other thing I think we did, we required that it be 30 days in advance, and I think the idea they had to give 30 days advance notice. The idea being that in this particular situation, there are a lot of people that are from out of town that can make a travel schedule within 30 days.
I don't know that you can make it any longer than 30 days.
No,
It's
no,
gonna
no.
be
I'd make it
practical.
shorter.
It's-
I would suggest making it shorter and have 2.
Which originally it was 15, if I'm not, or 10 or 15, Wes, the original.
I don't recall,
Yeah.
but I think it was maybe 10 days prior originally.
It's not outside of good planning practice to do 15 days and 2 public meetings. Staff, I think, would be in support of that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm still.
And the reason why I bring up the broadcast thing, I've attended one of these in a park,
Mhm.
under a park shelter. It was next to the nearby community that was coming in. The capability of what you're requesting may or may not be available
Right.
under a picnic shelter in a park. It is the voluntold aspect of the applicant. It's all on the burden of the applicant. If the applicant demonstrates in your purview or the council's purview that they did not
do a good job.
do a good job, you can take that in consideration. It's a legislative hearing. You can deny it.
That's right. Or it can negatively infect their.
I think the
their-
point would be we'd rather give them the guidelines, so to speak, of how to do a good job.
Right.
And that may or may not always be our purview to do so.
I mean,
So-
again,
Well, I mean, the irony of the meeting that they sponsored was they they made a big deal about, no, this is going to be.
Let's try to come up with some language
let-
here as
I
opposed
agree.
to.
Yeah.
That it is one. We cannot. The town hall cannot even account for all the people that come to the meeting. So I don't think that we can practically make someone rent out a
here's my
convention
wording.
center.
The
Yeah, but
location-
excuse
Yeah.
me,
Here's-
but the town hall rigorously generates a virtual attendance to that meeting, and you can follow it on YouTube.
But it's
so
not
the
a
fact that you
requirement.
can't get 400
It's
people
not a
in this room.
requirement.
It's not a-
We're only required to record the minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're even doing it on a
Yeah.
voluntarily.
Right.
basis.
Let me pose
Sure.
some wording. And we're talking about number C1. And we're talking about one meeting. I'll leave it at that. The location must accommodate all public wishing to attend, or additional meetings must be held with record of all comments and questions. Why can't that be sufficient?
I
And
think
if
it's subjective.
Well-
Define how.
when people are turned away at the door, that shows that all people that wanted to attend
We're denied.
were denied. Yes. If you sat at home because you thought the room wasn't going to be big enough, that's your problem.
something like that.
You have wording that's
Well, I went somewhat similar, is that they have to schedule additional PIMs until all the attendees are included. I did add one thing, 12 mile from the project bounds, only because it doesn't say that anywhere.
you mean where the meeting is?
Yeah, I guess we could reject the meeting. That's not convenient to everybody. But my thought was, we don't, in this case, they did it, obviously close right into the subject matter, but my thought was, say somebody in Wilmington wants to develop something, who to have the meeting up there, nothing in our code says they can't do that. So,
But
I added a
nobody would
12
want to
hour-
attend, so it's,
right. So, do we say then, you made it too hard, rejected? I just don't think we ever want to get to that point when, if we give them some guidelines, I just put down 12-mile radius or something to make it
Ron has a
convenient.
point.
But again, on a number of meetings, Chad is proposing that we just specify 2, because assuming 2 gets everybody all the time, and it's objective, right? 2. When if we do it our way, or my original language is, you got to have at least 1, and you need to have more until you accommodate everyone, becomes subjective.
Yeah,
I could be
that's fair.
had Chad ways too, because on what Wes originally said, it's probably unlikely, but maybe not unlikely. There's another big piece of parcel in this town.
Yes, I know, but do remember,
That it's unlikely we ever get one where there's so many.
this is not the last time the public's going to have an opportunity.
It's not the public's responsibility. I understand where you're coming from. This applicant wants to do something. I think they should. It's not like caveat emptor on the public. The public should be given easy thing to make their comment, get it recorded with their address, so that we get all that information on the first pass. If it's a crappy idea, then it should be kicked out right away. So
Let me ask this.
I know you say the public's got to the very end, but
Let
the very
me
end is
ask
too late.
this. Is there public comments that you felt that you did not hear?
No, I think we
I
got,
don't
in
know.
this case, we
I
got,
don't know.
I
don't
would
know.
say no.
No, and I would say as someone that
And
did
this is and that's me having that's a subjective comment. What I'm getting at is that you heard all the public comments. And so now we're re-engineering something
my,
to based on some situation that may or may not ever occur.
Well, no, I think it's
and,
incumbent.
and we
for-
can do that.
I
We
think
can do the whole freaking UDO again.
No. I think
Oh,
it's.
well, I mean, I'll also say this is that this is a great tool, regardless what everybody's opinion, including mine right now, think of conditional zoning. This is a damn good tool.
Yes,
All right. I
we may not be happy with what it builds, but
I
it's.
don't think we need to get in the process of making it too restrictive where people do not use it. We had that. It was called planned unit development or planned residential
Yeah.
development.
Planned residential
that
development.
never had an application submitted to this
Because it was
town.
onerous.
It was terrible.
Well, I don't think. I mean, the meeting requirement to me does not create a major barrier, and I think there is some value in that. The applicant has to go to the population prior to coming to the planning board, so the population can say,
I know.
"This is the craziest thing. Stop it."
So,
And then that developer or that applicant to make a decision: do I want to defy the community which I serve? I'll give you a perfect example. Ocean Ridge just had and they may be in the process of doing it, but the HOA did a survey where they went out and people voted, right?
Mhm.
And based on that vote, certain parts of what they were planning got kicked to the curb. That's a healthy process.
but it's also an HOA. They can do that.
I
There's
know,
things that the
and
HOA can do that we cannot.
I know, and that's why I would like to see this, the first step of this be outside of the planning board. Have it be part of the HOA
it
But
process.
that's not our responsibility. That's the HOA's responsibility.
Absolutely.
Well, then we can't dictate that.
We can dictate that the applicant has to have 2 public meetings. Now, in this particular case, it has to do with an HOA that frankly is not an HOA. That HOA is run
Hold
by
it,
the
hold it, hold it,
developer.
hold it.
Yeah.
We're going way,
I-
way.
well, I mean, right. We only have one experience with this, and it happened to be a complicated one. And certainly, I was there. I seen the people standing outside that didn't get in. A few people were unhappy, and I'm just trying to make it such that the public can either be convinced or unconvinced that this is a good idea before it comes to us.
Yes.
And I think the more
I'll-
upfront is better. And
I'll
If it-
stand here and say, in my expertise, and I know Wes has a lot more expertise in this than I do, I don't think you'll ever get there.
Well, you got a point there.
I-
And I guess the only other deficiency, and I'll shut up, is this, that not having comments tied to an address came, in my mind, was a problem. Because I couldn't find, when I'm looking at a particular
That's
property.
not your job. That-
But it is, it's the weight I give it. If somebody is a mile away from this thing they want to do, I am certainly not going to give, and they just want this as a convenience, I'm certainly not going to give it the weight that I am to the person that lives across the street from it.
So why are we trying to have accommodations for,
I'm
the-
addressing
South-
his thing about the address.
the
That's-
entirety of southeastern North Carolina? I think that it is very practical to say the meeting, where the meeting's held needs to be within 12 miles of the project site.
All right.
I
we-
think that's
the
fine.
planning
That
board
makes
agree on
sense.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sybil, do you agree on that?
No,
Okay. Richard, do you agree on that?
That
12
the meeting has
miles.
to be within 12 miles. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I don't know where 12 miles came from, but it's,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna agree
Why
with
not?
Legal,
anything.
off-city limit, I just come up with a number. I just pulled a number out of the air.
what are you against 10?
Yeah. I mean, what I suspect is that if I'm the applicant, I'm holding my meeting 11.5 miles away because I hope nobody shows up.
And when that applicant would come to the planning
Yeah, but right
board,
now they could still do that.
yeah,
They
They could go
could,
25
but
miles away.
they're going to see this provision and go, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go 11.5 miles away.
But why would you do that if you're an applicant?
I know.
I'm just telling you the way that this provision is going to be perceived.
Mhm.
But that's fine. Let's put it in here.
Why not something
You
easy
think the
like
12 is
why,
unreasonable?
why not say 10 miles?
Well, I tried to come
Just
with a-
don't even put it in here.
Yeah, but, so in other words, an applicant in Wilmington could schedule a meeting in Wilmington, and you're okay with that?
If
But then
they
again,
do that, that is terribly unwise on
Yeah.
their behalf.
yes.
well, so
I agree. We could
Hey.
we could use that as non-compliance on
Yeah.
that part.
Or just say, get out of here. We're going to deny your application on its
Okay.
face.
That-
So,
I think everybody can agree to that. Can't
Yeah.
they?
Yes.
yeah, you make a fair point.
So if we denied it on that, you had a whole pile of people that maybe for a subject would not be happy with that denial because of that.
Well, then,
Never mind.
then they have to redo it. And
But
have
I'll
the
also
meeting
say this,
within,
and I think we're forgetting this, is that when you have a conditional zoning, the amount of money and engineering that goes into the front part of this instead of the back end of this.
Let's put 2 meetings in here. Okay?
okay.
Good.
Board?
Good.
Sure.
Sure.
Yep.
Board? And 2 meetings.
So does that mean that they need to be held? Can they be back to back?
I would say they can be
And-
back to
And the
back.
wording in here, it says the report of the public hearing. That really wasn't a hearing. It was a committee meeting. I mean, it was a community
It's
meeting.
saying the report for the public hearing, meaning when the public hearing is held before the planning board or the town council.
The town council. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can reword that. But I want to make clear: are you saying that these meetings have to be held 60 days? You
I would
know,
hope not.
can they be back to
I would
back?
say they can be back
And
to back.
and are you comfortable if someone wants to do a little small, CZ site plan somewhere for a commercial thing that you want, and they got to hold 2 meetings? And that's fine if so.
Stop making this complicated.
I know. but you
Because
make it-
just like Chad said, you want this tool to be used, and so it's fine to do 2 meetings. That means that person's got to rent that space twice.
Yep.
I'm not convinced. I'm
Okay.
not satisfied.
That's fine.
I'm not.
So we'll do 2 meetings.
Yep.
I'm backing off of that. You've convinced me that for the majority of the cases that are the vast majority, overwhelming majority of cases that are going to be for us, that's an onerous item.
I'm
But the
say,
problem is what happens when this occurs and you can't accommodate anyone. I mean,
Then put the burden back on the applicant to explain it to you to either, we couldn't do this, why they couldn't do it, or we did it, we put the burden on ourselves to hold additional meetings
That's
to
right.
make sure everybody was accommodated.
And you guys are going to have a public hearing and public comment, and we're going to be here and listen to 5 hours of public hearing comments with their address if needed. And then same before the council. 2 more opportunities mandated.
Well, can we put something in that says to give some flexibility based on the size of the conditional zoning request, that the UDO administrator could require 2 meetings or
Sure.
require 1 meeting.
What that seems that's fine. If you guys want to say for projects where more than collectively 100 residential units proposed, 2 public meetings shall be.
Could it be done based on the number of notices that go out?
Mm,
Do you know that in the beginning? Because
Yes,
That's a lot of notices.
that's a lot of
and,
notices.
and they're also going to have to do that twice.
Within 500
No,
feet.
no, but I mean-
there's
For
a
the
lot of
reason why I
people.
say that is because you could have a 5-acre. There's plenty of examples. You can have a 100-acre parcel in this county, and you're adjacent to 2 people.
right, so
You
you're
could-
only going to need one meeting.
Right.
But-
But that's 100 acres.
Right, I'm not saying on
You
size.
could do
No, I think you misunderstood what
you
I
could
said.
do 2 acres inside a residential community. That next thing you know, there's 200 to 250.
Right, that's what I
people.
mean. Should we base the number of meetings?
So you're looking at based on the number.
In other
of
words,
houses
you only
sending
need one
out.
meeting if you only have 50, I'm making up numbers here. You only need one meeting if you have 50 notices. But you may need 2 you know what I'm saying? If you know the number of notices going out, you know kind of potential meeting attendees.
I think that brings into play. I would have.
I mean, do you know in advance how many notices they send out?
Yeah,
They,
'cause
they
I
sent
provided
a
to
lot
them.
on that one. I don't.
But I mean, just in general.
So that
yeah, I
kind of
provide that list to them.
right. So that kind of tells you can that be the criteria for how many meetings? In this case, do you remember how many notices were
But
sent out?
I think you're looking at it in a way of that it could be that project that you send out to 2 people could very well be more impactful than the one that I'm sending out to 250 people.
Right. But all I'm saying is, in the term, we know you're going to have one. We're requiring at least one public meeting. But going to what Richard's saying, you as the UDO administrator, based on the number of notices, can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, I would be okay with you putting in there that I have the ability to require 2 meetings or not. But that goes back to the thing of, with the TRC, is the question going to repeatedly come to me? It's like, why didn't you do this when you could have?
So
and I chose not to.
What we can say, applicants after number 1, applicants are strongly encouraged to hold an additional meeting where
If all
Yeah, it is.
interested parties could not be accommodated in the initial meeting.
that's yeah. There we go. And then put the burden on them.
So we're
It's-
down to 1 meeting, but we're going to explain that we're going to give some background to
Yep.
the
Yep.
scope of the size of the meeting.
Yes.
And the UDO administrator would have the power to require the second meeting.
No, this is again putting the burden on them. If they
Well, no. Somebody's got to require them to have another meeting.
so
Put the burden on the applicant
The
to do
burden is
so.
on them. It's saying that
Yeah, but the applicant could come, well, wait a minute, no,
Okay,
and they'll
then-
have to sit
then
up there
they're
and
gonna
explain
do
that to
to
you guys to say that everyone couldn't be accommodated.
and we didn't have 2 meetings, and we
And-
would
and you
go,
can
we'll
ask
have
them,
another
you can
meeting
say,
and
well,
come
do
back to
this.
us.
Why not?
And that can go into the
Yeah.
determining factor
Let's-
of you
let's-
approving,
let's- yeah.
denying, or whatever.
Read us again and let us digest that, because I think that's probably as solid as we're going to come up with without putting a burden on small conditional zoning
Yeah.
applications.
Applicants are strongly encouraged to hold an additional meeting where all interested attendees could not participate or attend.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is under C, public input meeting.
C1, yeah.
I'd prefer the language to be required, not strongly encouraged.
That's gonna create, I believe, a procedural hurdle because I think someone will pop up and say I couldn't attend, blah 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 or whatever. I think let's just make it one. That's just my position. Just make
Yeah,
one
there could
mandate.
be
Yeah,
where a meeting is inconvenient for somebody, so now they want a second meeting.
that's right, and they challenge it or whatever else. Yep.
Well, how is that different if the language is strongly encouraged? Oh, I
Just-
see what
it-
you're saying. Okay.
Wes is putting let's call it a social stigma on the developer if they in fact do not try to accommodate and satisfy the planning board at this stage that they've made a good faith effort to include everybody.
So the planning board would have the power to defer or reject the zoning request based on the knowledge that there were 200 people that attempted to attend and were not accommodated.
Yes, I mean you could view them unfavorably. Yes.
Okay, well, I could view them unfavorably. The question is, can I deny their request? I view a lot of
You can
things
deny
unfavorably.
you can deny their request. You can make a recommendation to deny their request, really for any particular reason.
Okay.
Um,
Okey doke.
when they're talking about a number 4 here, they're talking about the meeting, and as well a description of the proposal. That's what they have to, the applicant would have to provide to the citizens, if you will, because they need to decide whether or not this is something important to them or not.
Yes.
I'd like to see a 5 business day prior to the meeting note put on there.
Well, they have to
rather-
notice them 30 days prior to the scheduled meeting.
But, okay, I see that. And the notice is,
Yeah.
all right, but yeah,
They have to.
that didn't happen the last time, but
Yeah, it did. I promise you it did.
So I just,
Now-
mine-
So
Now, let me,
hold-
I know,
hold on. I think
go ahead.
Pete is talking about that like the site plan should be sent to everyone. I think, it's really the notice is just saying that we're holding a public input meeting for a development proposal,
Right.
which is then presented at that meeting.
and a description of the proposal. So you're saying that, all right, I'm off it.
Now, you were referring to the public input meeting because I operate on a 10 to 25 day window. That's general statute. Was that what you were referring to, mine or theirs?
No, I'm talking about the people that are going to the meeting need to understand what is being discussed,
Mhm.
so they can decide if they want to have an interest or not in it.
And
And it can be more than just a notice of or a description of the proposal.
so what we could say, the applicant shall mail a notice to the public input meeting with their contact information, so that, which it is always in there, but we can require it so that if you receive it, you can call them and say, what is this? And not call, they're going to call staff anyways.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I see
Yeah.
where you're going.
Yep.
I see. And if I have an interest, because I know a general
up the phone,
description of
yeah.
it, if I want to know particulars, I've got a place to call.
Yep.
Yes, I like that. Does everybody know what we were just talking about there?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. A little housekeeping in terms of this number of meetings request. The initial meeting would have to be 30 days prior.
We
but
only have
any
one meeting.
But if a secondary meeting is required, it can be within after that 30-day.
Well, the secondary meeting is not going to be required.
It's
gonna
not
be
required.
It's going to be strongly recommended.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
one meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Only,
if they have a second meeting,
It's
it
on
doesn't
them.
push the calendar back.
nope.
No, I mean, so technically, the way that, I can put a caveat in there that says that
Okay.
notice is not required, but basically, hey, folks, sorry we couldn't get anybody during the meeting. We're going to hold this next week.
Well, I will
Whatever.
also
Yeah.
say this, Richard, that it
Mhm.
might help to know that before this can go before you,
Hmm.
that public community input meeting report must be submitted to me. So before that can be finalized, so in
Okay.
a way,
There's already a step.
yeah.
Okay.
What,
Good.
one of the things that we've come up across in our one and only venture down this road is definition of what a use is.
Mhm.
And an applicant can come up with something that's pretty novel, but we don't really even know what they mean. I'd like to see something where a definition of a use is either already in our UDO, or a definition is a complete definition is arrived at, so that we're not asking the question, what is Topgolf, or what is this, or what is that? Should
So,
have said that. I'll take that back. But it's,
I want to make sure that we finish up with C here. Are we still on C?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
I thought we had finished it, but okay.
Okay. There was some other additional stuff about that under 5. Is there anything else that the applicant's report of the meeting shall include? Or is that fine?
I would have liked some way to sort the comments by address, but you had people's names in a comment, but I didn't know where they were from. and when we went site by site, if you remember, it became somewhat critical sometimes to find
in your
adjacent or budding people
In
to see
your-
if they comments.
in your opinion, it did. But yes, and that's fine. Your opinion is it's fine. But I would go away. I would get away from that. That's where the public hearing is for.
Get away from what?
At this stage, having the addresses. At the public hearing, you need to state your name
Well, I
and
thought
address.
they were collecting it on the roster, right?
Yes.
There's an attendance roster.
With their name and address.
Yes.
But the
Some emails that we got just had somebody's name on it.
yeah, I was trying to,
There is
and
who was mailed. That's name and address. But the attendance roster is just Bob Smith, Jim Smith. Doesn't have their.
well, they collected address,
That's fine. But we're not requiring it.
and you don't think we should.
I don't think so at this stage. But that's. I mean, you can say an attendance roster with addresses.
Well, it's very simple to add
Can we,
to this.
can,
Yeah.
we, can we strongly recommend it?
Well, no, let's add.
And the reason I was trying to get
That's one
to it
word we can add and we can move
is
forward.
trying to figure out, and again, I was trying to figure which, looking at a particular site, I guess maybe I'm not supposed to, but I was trying to weigh
Yes, you are.
comments of
I
people
did.
close by and trying to figure out how to
Sure.
find those. And
Yep.
I don't know if they supplied you a
Well,
spreadsheet with comments
No,
or
the
whatever.
problem on that was they gave name and addresses at people that spoke at the community meeting. We would get email after email after email that did not have people's addresses on it, and that's where the problem was for me, not from the community meeting.
oh, okay.
Community meeting had an address and it came in. We have
Yeah.
it was
No,
30
53
pages.
Yeah, it's 53 pages. I thought.
we were sent
yeah.
that.
Yep.
Right. But there was also there was outside meetings and comments that didn't record any of that. There was
Outside meetings.
there was a meeting at, where
Oh, at people's
there was
houses.
people
and stuff.
referenced and stuff, but
Yeah.
none of those comments were attached to that report
They didn't.
or had any address. So I don't know how you classify these sort of sidebar meetings.
That you don't, and we don't need to have anything to do with that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to participate in a meeting. It's just people were applicant was making claims on comments at the meeting, and which we didn't have or didn't know who was there and where they were relative to the subject. But again, this was a complicated one, as you said. But
I struggle with it, but I don't know that you can make the applicant responsible for every email we get.
well, I'm talking about just what he has.
Anything
presented-
that came from the applicant, I think I knew where those people lived.
I just think we had everything. But that's
All right. So let sounds like we can move on. So 5C will say attendance roster with addresses. That's it, and we're moving on.
Okay, can we go to 5H, and I'll get through this very quickly. One of the things that was not a stumbling block, but a difficulty in reviewing this last conditional zoning had to do with residential developments where they were not providing locations, or at least approximate locations, and this is number H. Right now, they only have to provide height, type of dwelling, and uses.
Yep.
I'd like to see an approximate footprint and location of the structures, even for residential. Because as it came down, I think the applicant saw that they weren't going to get nowhere until they provided that to us.
So what if it said approximate footprint and location of multifamily? Because I don't think that you
Okay.
guys
Okay.
are interested in seeing the
Well,
location of a single family
And the one single family that was here,
Or-
we
or-
didn't ask for it anyway.
or
So,
duplex.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
We were on B.
We're number 5. Now we're going to number 6.
On what
Under
page?
B. Under B.
B, D, what are you?
We were on B.
238.
We're on Bravo. Yeah, we're on Bravo.
No, well, okay, going
We
back.
finished with 5.
On 5B, I suggested open space be added in there. It came up a number of times. I hate to always go back to the one we did. But in subparagraph B, we talked about a lot of different things. Commercial, office, institutional. but open space or protected space, whatever you want to call it, it's not in there yet. It became a item of crosshatching or whatever we did. So should that be included in that subparagraph B?
It's easy to add,
Yep.
and I don't think it has anybody's going to have gas with it.
No.
On number 7, I've always had difficulty with the timeline because the only timeline they really have is the planning board is the only one whose head is in a vice for time. We've got 60 days from the time they provide the application to send it on to town council.
I mean, we can clarify that. I mean, the intent of this is once you receive the application, basically at your meeting, the clock would start. I mean, we can make that
Well, that's
clear.
not clear.
And so we can have it at the time of application submittal, one or the other. But
Well,
I
how
think
about we say that we have to have a meeting within a certain number of days, because I think it's mandated 30 days, we have to have a meeting anyway, if somebody
Sure.
comes in with an application.
um,
Isn't that true?
are you
It's not-
fine with 60 days from presentation at meeting?
I would rather do that because
Yep.
Wes and I had conversations. Your mic muted. Sorry. Thank you. So I would do it from the
60 days, at which point in time the application is officially included on an agenda, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys see that? Guys and gals see that? Okay. I think that's important. Because right now the
I
timeline
don't
was
wanna-
fuzzy.
You don't want to constrain staff's review on this because it very well could sit on my desk for 90 to 180 days, and if it's not ready to come before you, that's going to muddy
And you
the
were
water.
this time.
Yeah, I
'Cause you were
was.
using our time, so which you had to.
I had to.
All
Right, so
60
we're going to
days-
change 7 to be 60 days from
Now, I will say this,
planning board
Mr.
meeting?
Chair.
Yeah, from the,
Initial presentation of the planning board.
Now, I
Okay.
will say this. Your time did not start until you received it the first time.
yeah, but they could have pushed that, and they didn't.
So, because you had until January
No, but
3rd.
that was
You had 60 days.
That was an offer in compromise. The way this is written, they didn't have to agree to that.
So I'll also say that we need to make a change also on your rezoning as well.
What number you want?
This would be on your previous section, 216B2. This is planning board action recommendations of the planning board for
Okay.
zoning and text amendments. If no recommendation is received from the planning board within 60 days from the date when presented to the planning board rather than submitted, the petitioner may take the proposal to the town council without a recommendation.
Okay. Everybody hear that?
Yep.
And that was 216. You have a page number?
2-35.
235?
One second. Sorry.
So on the TRC for this, that the same
That
rules also apply.
235. Yep.
Oh, yes. Okay. I see it now. Received. Okay, from the date of the planning board meeting. Or you had better words than that.
60 days.
Corrected to be, well, read the same. Yeah.
Thank you for picking that up, Wes.
Yeah.
In the subparagraph 6 there, does technical review procedure, the argument we had before on the planning board liaison also apply here?
Mhm.
So it would be the same.
Yeah, but we've already established who's in the technical review committee
Right.
room.
Right.
So we don't need to reestablish it
No,
here.
it would be the same as,
It would apply.
Anytime
As
there's
an
a
umbrella.
the TRC,
And I want to, well,
something that was very unclear, and it could come up this time, is number 10, when it says the town council may not vote to rezone property during the time period beginning the date of a municipal general election. I'd certainly hate to have a citizen say that I'm on town council, I ain't going to run again, and I can vote against something 30 days before I don't run again.
That's based on statute and case
You
law.
always say that.
That's
So this
based
is
on a
North
case
Carolina.
from. Yes, you can find it in North Carolina General Statutes.
So
it's based on
essentially,
Charlotte
If
case law.
so, the conditional zoning request basically sits in limbo
It's tabled. That's correct. Yeah.
until
hmm
January.
Yeah. So like where they process a lot of these, for example, City of Wilmington, New Hanover, they get this full load of them right before
Election.
the election. Yep.
That's my hair goes up in the back of my neck when I see people that don't want to run again and can vote it on their way out.
Yep.
It isn't so much the new people coming in, it's because they got to live with it.
My concern is, doesn't that give some incentive to the applicant to bum rush this thing prior to that date? Because otherwise, they're sitting around for 3 months
Well,
and
it
can't
gives
do anything.
incentive for us to finish with this before November.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. It's
I had a
what the language is during the time period beginning the bidding on the date of a municipal. Oh, okay. All right. Never mind.
All right,
Got it.
Ron?
The only thing, I had a note here about dimensioning setbacks and buffers. It probably came from above in the B5 section.
Could it be 5H? You'd like to add that?
Well, yeah, because if I remember correctly, we were a little unclear on, now maybe that was just an oversight on the drawings that were submitted, that making sure that all setbacks and buffers were dimensioned on their application.
Yeah, but that if it isn't per existing UDO, they'd need to have that on there. But if it is, they don't
So
have to
assuming the
show
ones
it at
that
all.
were missed were just oversights. And
That was a bit of an issue that we had.
so we need to make sure that's clarified, that they all have to be dimensioned. Make sure they dimension them all,
So
regardless whether it's a change or not change or anything.
where
Just dimen-
pardon, where are you mentioning? Where are you?
in the 5 section. Of
Yeah.
What's required? Should we just say they must provide
That,
dimensions for all setbacks and buffers?
they provided written. They provided. Speaking about surveyor stuff, but they did provide a description of what the setbacks were for each of the sites.
Mhm.
But they weren't bearing in distance. So each of the sites said setback will be, 10, 12,
rear
or
front
whatever,
and back.
rear front, that, yeah. So
Right.
they did.
But they weren't dimensioned all on the drawing.
Correct.
Should we just require that?
I mean, I could see an
It's
instant.
really the place it should be.
Yes, but if you have a,
But if it conforms, it doesn't need to be.
that's right, or if you have a large,
Yeah, it's more
Right.
difficult for us. Yeah, you're right.
but if you have a large residential proposal where it doesn't make sense, you're just saying that we've got this 100-acre tract and the setbacks are going to be this
Mhm.
versus going through,
Yeah.
going through and putting it on,
On the drawing for each
they,
lot.
they'll ultimately be on there.
On the preliminary.
on the preliminary
I mean, and
plat.
ultimately,
Yeah.
we were caught many
Yeah.
a times in between two different procedures where we needed to see more detail, but it wasn't necessarily.
I can't think
Required,
of one case. It seems
however-
to me it's better that it's just on the drawing. They're showing the lot line boundaries anyway. And we're asking for footprints for non-residential and now multifamily.
But
Well,
Wes is right. When you get one of these for just one big residential development, you see the lot lines where on the preliminary plat where it's going to have to come back before you get the more engineered rendered drawings where there's more
up
detail on
to the
it.
boundaries.
Yeah, but the only thing we put in there was in multifamily, that we wanted
Yeah.
an approximate footprint of multifamily, not on a.
Well, it's
single
already
family.
required for the non-residential.
Right, exactly.
So
For
that's where we-
commercial. It's required anyway.
So we were looking on the drawing, it's making
I
sure
mean,
that
and-
everything
and-
existed inside the setbacks.
Now, I will say this: the applicant of the one we just saw chose not to do this, but they ultimately could have on the non-residential entities used that as their zoning approval. They just decided not to do it in that much detail and not request that. But they could have used conditional zoning as the limit or the conditional zoning and major site plan in one and the same, to be able to move forward with their zoning approval. They just did not do that.
But that they would have to comply with the major site plan
That's
requirements. I think it's probably fine. It's trying to strike a balance between conceptual and enough detail to allow folks to understand.
And I have one last policy question, which was in the beginning of this thing. In B2, we've eliminated 3 zoning districts from conditional zoning, BR1, BR2, and CR1.
Yes.
When I originally agreed to that, we had a higher acreage limit, which was changed in council. So
We had no acreage limit.
no, we had a higher, like 20,000 square feet or something. I forget the 10,000. There was a higher number that you couldn't, to do a CZ, you needed more land than the 1 acre. I don't remember. I have to,
When it went to council, it had no acreage.
No.
They inserted
when we
that.
sent it to council, it had,
No, the acreage threshold was dropped. It was initially drafted that way. Then
We
it was dropped. Then it was dropped. Yep.
And then it went
No.
to council, and council was
mainland residential districts, a minimum of 25 acres contiguous tract is required for any conditional zoning request. That was removed at council and
that-
reduced to 1.
No, that was
no,
removed.
I don't think so,
at
Ron. I think
planning
I-
board.
no,
stage.
I think
No.
we reduced it.
I think we reduced it. In fact, I
Yeah,
think I'm the
'cause
one
Ron wasn't
asked
at
for
that meeting.
reduction.
We sure?
Yes.
Because it came up, I was at the council meeting and it was
That's
discussed then.
Yes.
I think you reduced it in
No.
between the council meeting.
You weren't at the planning board
We-
meeting.
I know that.
we took it out. We
Mm-hmm.
took out because we said it'll stand on its own merits anyway, so the size wouldn't have much to do with it.
Yep.
And then citizens jumped up and down and said, hold it, we can't have Kool-Aid stands in everybody's backyard and the golf courses. So town
Council was the
council
one that put the
looked
threshold
between
on
1
it.
and 2 acres, and they decided on 1.
Okay, but anyway, irregardless, I would like MR1 and MR2 also included as not suitable for CZ, being a mainlander. I think it's equitable with what's going on the island.
Mm-mm.
I live in MR2, so I got to think about this.
I mean,
No, it wouldn't affect my.
Because with the ways they're written now, you could parcel up together enough lots to get to that 1 acre pretty easily in both MR1 and MR2. So I would like it as a matter of
Can I
policy.
borrow this for a second?
Sure.
Oh, is it in here?
Oh.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I don't know. That's
And this is
it's certainly worth discussion. I don't know, from my own standpoint, I don't know that conditional zoning in MR3 is any different than in MR2. There could be reasons for doing a conditional zoning in MR2 that would be just as valid.
Why?
I mean, you're not, I mean, I think we're taking into consideration of the non-residential entity, but there's the residential entity that's most of the time more applicable to this thing. So you're taking that away from them, the ability to do that in some of our biggest acreage zones that we still have in MR1 and MR2.
No, you don't.
Yeah, we will.
So
So you're telling a developer in MR1, MR2 that they could not do a CZ for potential residential development inside that.
no.
I mean, you
that-
just said it that they
No,
could
we
get
only
to that
have-
acreage very quickly.
The BR1 and BR2 are taken out because it's all platted.
Yeah.
It's all basically single use. There's
And so is MR1 and MR2.
is MR1 and I don't have a copy of my zoning map in front of me, but
There's very little MR1.
Yeah, there isn't much.
Although it's undeveloped. There's some
Yeah.
of it's undeveloped.
But
for sure.
platted.
MR1 is very small. MR2 is much bigger. But
And platted.
yeah, but everything.
So I don't see any difference or equity between BR1, BR2, MR1, and MR2. Should be treated the same and not suitable for conditional
I
zone.
think it's
let's-
vastly different.
What's the logic on BR1 and BR2? I can see CR1 because that's conservation reserve.
I think the logic is we knew that nothing's, try and do something conditional rezoning on the beach properties is a non-starter. So
And should be non-starter in a mainland residential area.
I guess I wouldn't have any issue with MR1 being included as the no.
thanks, Aaron.
But MR2 there's no difference between MR3 and MR2, just larger lots. And then we bumped up MR3 to in the direction of MR.
So you're gonna
Anyway.
Well, MR2
with this part you're gonna include MR1, but you're gonna leave out MH1, MH2 that's already platted in the same concept as well. I don't think this is a great idea. I understand BR1, BR2,
Yeah.
Well,
but
again, maybe I
if
missed.
we just don't want it in one zoning district and that's our only basis behind this, then I think that's a bad idea.
We don't want it on the island. We don't
Yeah.
want it in conservation
Well,
reserve.
but that's a little different than the MR1, MR2, and MR3.
I agree.
It's a lot different.
Yes.
Well, again, what's the thinking between why BR1 and BR2 are excluded?
Because now there's a 1 acre threshold, but this has been a discussion in other beach communities. You don't want someone bypassing what is really the variance process and trying to use a CZ. If someone's got a lot that's worth whatever, $500,000, $600,000, $800,000, going through the CZ process versus the variance process is not that big of a deal. And typically those are where we're on the island proper. But we don't need to. Do we need to do a straw vote or a vote on this so we can just move on? Sounds like we have one member that is in favor of this, and the rest, there's no reason to even have this discussion.
As I said, I can see MR1, but I'm not in favor of MR1 enough to go through all of this again.
No.
Okay. Sounds like we have an informal.
It defeats the purpose of the CZ to begin with. So, that's the reason why we did all this CZ work, to make sure everybody had an opportunity.
Right. So that means someone can put together parcels in MR1 and MR2, come up with a CZ for commercial, I should say non-residential uses. They can do multifamily uses and get it approved.
Well,
If they
But
get it,
none of that
if-
is allowed in MR1 and MR2.
if they get it approved.
if they get it
It
approved.
don't have to be.
Someone who
approved.
lives on the other side of town could care less what goes on in that corner. So the purpose of
True.
MR1 and MR2 are strictly residential, single families. That's what they're for.
Then let that guide you in your decision to.
Not my decision. I made it
You're-
at some
it-
point in the future.
Yeah,
But then, and again, there's an equity issue between the island and the mainland. Then.
Do we need to just move on here or take a vote?
Let's just-
We're talking about,
We can just take a vote, end it.
Mr. Chair.
So I'll make a motion, let me make a motion that zoning districts MR1 and MR2 be included in the language, proposed language,
To not
section
be allowed.
2.17, paragraph B, subsection 2 of the draft UDO dated May 18th, 2023.
We have a second. Seeing none, the motion doesn't forward.
Okay. All right.
Try it. Good try.
Anything else in Article 2?
Yes. On table 2.1, which I have on page 2-44,
Mm-hmm.
if you go down to near the bottom, the left-hand column says zoning map amendment. Under planning board, we have R, and then in brackets, we have PH.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't, first of all, I don't really know well, PH is a public hearing.
Mhm.
Shouldn't it, I wrote a note here, shouldn't it be brackets with a I in it? Why did I write that?
So
Where you at?
for text amendment,
Page 2-44 in the table 2.1, and it's all the way down at the bottom under, it has to do with what the planning board is doing.
that's right.
Reg-
So
Go ahead.
yes, I'm sorry. Text amendments are an optional public hearing. That's the one above it. That's why it has two. That basically said held at the discretion of the planning board, which is down below. That's a footnote. But it is a requirement for a public hearing to be held for a rezoning before the planning board recommendation.
But doesn't the planning board have the discretionary right to propose public hearings?
Yes, that's the one right above it for text amendments.
Mm-hmm.
Public hearings may be held at the discretion of the planning board for any proposed text amendment. And in the previous section, the
Okay,
narrative.
I'm seeing it now. Okay, I'm
The
seeing it now. We
narrative
have
that it-
advisory recommendations on both of those, on
Yeah.
zoning map and conditional zoning, and a public hearing, PH.
Yep.
All right, I've confused myself.
And I made a note on the same table on the next page. On this section, maybe because it's combined, on the application type, zoning map amendment, comma, conditional zoning district. I did it in pink, so I thought on the last column, posted notice 3, should there be an X-PH there? Because zoning map amendment requires the posted notice? We need to break that up or something?
Pardon. Which one?
On zoning map amendment,
Yep.
comma, and we combine conditional zoning district, the last column, we have an X-PH in the mailed notice. Shouldn't there also be an X-PH in the posted notice?
I need to look.
I'm not sure where you are, but
Right here.
Okay, so the third box up. Okay, you
Because
say
for
I
zoning,
thought you
zoning
got-
map amendment requires a posted notice. Now,
I
maybe
don't-
we can't combine those two into one category? Because CZ does not require a postal notice, right? Is that what the problem is?
I'm just reading
But,
this.
but zoning map amendment would. Or you can consider it, make a note of it, and check it later, I guess.
well, you're saying if the planning board has a public hearing.
Yes, there
it needs
is
to be
posted notice for planning board for zoning map amendment.
So it would be X-PH
Yep.
in the far right-hand column.
Mhm.
Right above that, we're under text amendment is the left-hand column, and there's a planning board and a town council. We have footnote 4, which is regards the planning board, and that's down under town council. Shouldn't those two be switched?
They should. Thank you. Good
The
catch.
4 should be on the,
4 should be on the planning board and not on the town council.
That's right.
I missed that one, sorry.
Thank you.
You're fired.
That's it, thank
No,
God.
no,
Under penalties, under 2.24, enforcement, D, penalties. The town council just changed the rules that added the $100 a day,
I'll make sure he gets
and that needs to be in
Yes.
Yep.
this, and it's
Yep.
not.
Yes,
Yep.
sir. I'll make sure he gets that because there's a public hearing for a text amendment on Monday night's agenda as well. And I'll plan on getting both of those to him.
Okay.
So
All right, that finishes with Article 2. It's 12 o'clock. We've been going at this for 3 hours. I'm prepared to go further because I think we need to go further. But what does the planning board think about a recess or think about stopping?
staff, I have an appointment that I have to make, and I need to be excused. I also need to talk with Wes and Lisa before I leave, and it's all the way in Wilmington. We are going to.
So what are you saying? You need to cancel that meeting? We work further?
No, I can't unless somebody wants to pay my $100 fine to the dentist.
Why don't you go to Dr.
Show of
Jones?
hands.
Right here.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So we are
Our
going
town
to
administrator is going to.
we are going to meet on the 20th.
That was going to be a question as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi. Sorry I was late getting to the party today. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with meetings going forward. The town council has been presented with the whatever number draft you want to call it in June, and they are already reviewing it. They are anticipating receiving your final draft and recommendation at their August meeting, in which they will schedule a public hearing for September. Then if the planning board wishes to hold, and the town council wish to hold a joint meeting, you can do that sometime in the month of August when your schedules align. I encourage you to schedule however many special meetings that you're going to think you're going to need in addition to your, what is it, July 20th?
July 20th.
In addition to your
August
July
3rd.
20th meeting, so that at whatever meeting is your last one in July, which is needs to be at least 7 days before the town council, so Katie and I can get their agenda packet out, that you need to be prepared to make that recommendation that this UDO be approved.
I understand. The schedule that I was working under was that September would be the date that we would get together with town council and planning board. And I appreciate that all of us would like it to be sooner than that. But that was the initial schedule that Wes had put together in January of 2022. And we've been
That's correct.
We've been busting to try to keep up to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would venture to say that what we just talked about with conditional zoning is hopefully not going to be, we're not going to have we're not going to have hurdles like that in the rest of the document. So I would be hopeful that we can get through it, but I would be willing to say that we could require 3 more meetings to get to the point where we are through this. I don't know what the rest of the planning board thinks.
But you already have one
Which is
scheduled
now,
for July 20.
right.
So that's one. So you only need to call 2 special meetings, and then you'll still be,
Because we have one on the 3rd, right?
and you know, calendars and agendas and schedules are
Yeah,
great tools
August
to
3rd
have.
is another meeting, which is before the town council's meeting.
And not in time for us to get the packet out.
Okay.
So it needs to be before your August 3rd meeting. That recommendation needs to be made to the town council.
Well, I can make myself available,
It's
but
gonna
I
be
don't know
tough on
about
me, but-
Wes. And
And it would probably be good for the 3 of us to look at schedules, and then you all send Chad what your availability is.
Okay.
And then we will, through non-open meeting violation correspondence, get with you to schedule a public meeting, call a special meeting of the planning board for X number of days
I mean,
to consider
if this
continuing.
if this doesn't work for staff and Wes, what does that look like?
Yeah.
That's
It
tight.
will, one way or another.
I can be available on next Tuesday. I guess I'm just gonna bring a cot down here.
Is that
but
the 12th?
that's 11th.
That's the 11th.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out of town that week.
I will not
11th,
be here.
12th,
Yeah.
10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's
So the
tough
20th
then.
is scheduled, right?
And the
Yes.
20th, we just may need to plan to be here all day. And that on what I'm going to, my goal will be to get that appendix to you all next week in addition to the Muni Code modifications so that we'll have those for review and that we may need to be prepared and then potentially these changes we made to Article 1 and 2 that we can go through on the 20th and possibly be prepared to make a recommendation subject to XYZ changes, knowing that you'll see them again and
What's-
a
What's
potential
wrong with the
workshop.
third, I guess? I don't, the third is not,
She's saying they don't have enough time to get it all
don't have
together
August
in time
meeting.
for town council.
August is the 14th. Okay, well then you can make your recommendation at the August 3rd meeting
okay. So,
because we will have,
Time.
yep,
So we got-
sufficient time.
so we got a-
2 out of the 3.
so we got a full
Mhm.
day on the 20th and then August 3rd.
And we're going to need, I would say, I would like to see us get one more in there during the week of the 24th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th.
Well, what about the 19th or the 21st on either side of your July
I'm
20th?
good on the 19th. I'm good on the 21st.
You're out of town, right?
Okay.
Let me see. I can't do the 19th. I have another.
Yeah, the
What
19th
about
's
the
out.
21st?
21st.
I turned 40 that day, and I will not be in this place.
We
I
have
can
one
tell you
board
that.
member.
Come on, we'll buy you.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
one board member not available on the 21st.
Yeah.
Is everybody available on the 20th?
Yes.
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 Okay, and everybody but Jerry's available on the 21st, or you're
20th
not?
and 21st, going to Philadelphia.
Okay, you're not available on the 20th. Okay. Well, would have a quorum.
When was the
Trust
third
me, you
meeting?
guys do well.
August 3rd.
August 3rd. Right?
What's your first planning board meeting?
It's
No.
we have a
Right.
meeting then anyway.
Just
All
do-
right, so the 11th is out. We're not meeting on the 11th.
No.
No.
Okay, all right, I knew the word. So the 20th, 21st, and 3rd of August.
Well, we don't know about the 20th yet. Or 21st, but
I can't do the 21st.
no.
How about the
Sorry.
24th or the 25th?
Nope.
No.
'Cause you're out of town.
Yep.
26th, 27th,
He's
28th.
out of town.
No.
That's what I'm
I can
saying.
do the 20th most all day. I can be here all day, and then we can meet on the 3rd. So there's multiple members out next week.
No, just one.
Okay.
Oh,
Not
next week.
Next
Next
week.
week, I'm not here, and Richard is not here.
I can also do tomorrow.
But
I can
you-
meet for 2 hours from 9 to 11.
I cannot do tomorrow
Okay.
because I have to. I have a
today.
meeting tomorrow
Yeah.
that I cannot cancel. That's in this building.
What about August 4th?
I can do the 4th.
Okay.
4th?
So we can put a placeholder on there for the 4th.
So
No
we're,
no wonder you have the big job. Yes, the 4th.
of August.
All right, so we're doing
August.
the
Thursday,
20th, the
Thursday.
3rd, and 4th.
And so we have 2 meetings back to back then, which is going to motivate us to
Yeah.
for efficiency and accuracy.
Okay. And if we're going to do all day on the 20th, we may not need the 4th.
We'll see.
Mhm.
Okay.
We still need to schedule it.
Right. And you'll just need to make a motion right now
Okay.
to schedule those. The July 20th is scheduled already. The August 3rd is scheduled already. You just need to call a special meeting for August 4th at 9 a.m.
How does the planning board feel in their gut about 3 more meetings to finish this up?
I'm not sure we'll need August 4th because what I've looked ahead on is pretty,
Okay.
well, I don't know about the cell towers.
Well, let me ask you this: we can placehold the 4th. We don't have to call the meeting, but if we get to the 3rd and we need the 4th, you can call it this. Just
Well, you
put it in your calendar.
yeah, it's in my calendar.
You have to call it, Chad.
No, it can be canceled.
All right. What do we say about today?
If you make a motion, yes, then you can cancel it.
That's right. It
Let's-
needs to be called,
do it.
scheduled,
And
but
then
then it can
cancel
be
it.
canceled.
All right.
Correct.
I have a question about today. It's 10 after 12. Are we we
Gotta go.
I've got to go.
Yeah.
We're
gonna
done.
adjourn?
Adjourn.
I have pictures of cell tower stuff I wanted to give you
Okay.
because I think I wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was what
All right.
in your review.
As we're at the stopping point at the end of section or Article 2,
You need to schedule that meeting,
I know.
please.
well, the first thing I have to do is public comments, which we're not going to have because there's no public. I'd like to make a motion that that our next planning board meeting will be on the 20th of July, Thursday at 9 a.m. And that we will have another meeting planning board meeting on the 3rd of August. And that would still
Those
be
are
a
all
regular
good.
meeting.
Yes, I just need.
And we'll have a special meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. here in council chambers on the 4th, Friday, the 4th of August. Can I have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Sounds good.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm going to
When's your birthday party?
I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Is it seconded?
I second.
And
Adjourned.
meeting adjourned.
All right.
Okay.